What's everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto faced a version of himself from a darker universe? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. Took a look back, and realized how much my writing sucked way back when. So I said fuck it, I'm bored, might as well rewrite some of this with more awesome and less ass. Ow, I woke up from a rather nice dream, I just couldn't remember what it was about. I bloody hate that. I was awoken by the sound of someone groaning in absolute anguish. It took several long, painful moments to realize it was coming from me. With no small amount of effort, I opened my eyes, pulling myself up into a sitting position. All around me, I could see was a blur of color. As I rubbed the sleep from my eyes, something became apparent. My hands weren't my hands. I blinked, once, twice, then looked at the digits in question, turning them over. They were far too small to be mine. What the bloody fucking? I immediately looked around, and realized I was not in my bed, nor even in my own room. Seeing this, I jumped out of the warm bed, dashing over to the closest window. It was dark outside, but there was just enough light for there to be a clear reflection. What I saw disturbed me. Dark eyes, dark hair, vaguely emo expression, hair like a duck's ass. The face was boyish, young and handsome, with pale white skin that contrasted the ebony hair and irises. I blinked, looking at my reflection. What the hell? I muttered to myself, voice rather high-pitched and whiny. Now normally, I am tall, muscular, and ruggedly handsome, with a prickly buzzcut. I am also 17, not friggin' 12. What the helling hell? Then I noticed something. The face I saw in the window, it was familiar. It looked like, quit stalling. There's no bloody dramatic effect from pauses in writing. Like Sasuke Uchiha from Naruto. The hell? Either I'm dreaming, or there's some seriously fucked up shit going on. As I pinched myself in the side, no, I realized, I was not dreaming. Oh, this is just fucking lovely. The irate growl that escaped my lips was more akin to a purr than a growl, which further annoyed me. After sitting back down on the edge of the bed, my mind began churning, intricate webs of suspicions and intrigue spinning. But I kept drawing a blank as to how or why I was here. With a heavy sigh, I mumbled to myself, hamster must have fell off the wheel. This is getting me nowhere. I need more information. Well, what do I do? Stay here? Nah, too boring, nothing to be done or gained. Head out? Why not? If this is some kind of dream or hallucination, I might as well have fun. Before I set about looking around the room, I tried to recall the last few conscious memories I had. Nothing. I fell asleep, and bam. Here I was. But there was something odd, rattling around in my brainbox. I distinctly remember going to the academy yesterday, and meeting Kakashi Hatake. The guy smelled like a wet dog, mixed with some kind of faintly feminine perfume. Seriously, weird. I remember learning to fight, to kill, to use chakra. I felt oddly strong, and yet, those memories felt uncomfortable, as if they were not mine. Which is absolutely right, they're Sasuke's. Now mine. Putting all that aside, I decided to wing it for one day. I'd worry more about what I'll do after I see the world through these eyes. After poking around the room, I found a drawer filled with clothes, and another loaded with weapons and gear. Equipment a ninja would use. Steel wire, kunai, shuriken, caltrops, scrolls, exploding tags, soldier pills, mesh armor, rations bars, grappling hooks, rope, climbing spikes, and a myriad of other assorted items. Figuring I'd go with my own style, I pulled a pair of cargo pants and the Uchiha's trademark short-sleeve, high-collar shirt. Before that, of course, I put on the mesh underarmor. It was surprisingly heavy, but very comfortable. After swapping outfits, I threw on a pair of armored gloves, strapped on a pair of sandals. I was so going to see about a decent pair of boots later on. I decided on equipment. I strapped 2 pouches to the back of my belt, each filled with a variety of gear. One in particular I added several ration bars. I had a feeling this was particularly early in the series. Earlier, when looking around, I couldn't find a picture of Team 7, of Kakashi, Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke. There was also a note on the nightstand, the handwriting looking vaguely familiar. Get up early. No breakfast. Training field 3. This kinda tipped me off. So this is what, episode 2? Or 3? 4, actually, either way. Today's supposed to be the day of the bell test, huh? Looking over at the clock, it was only 5:40, I had time. When I was about to leave the bedroom, I noticed something. A blue object resting on the drawer next to the door. A Hite 8 Leaf Village headband and forehead protector. Picking it up, I unfolded it, before making a bandana and tying it around my forehead, matting down and hiding the duck butt hairstyle. Now that I was looking and feeling a bit more like myself, I left the room and went searching for the kitchen. It was a good-sized house, not an apartment. I figured it must have been inside the Uchiha compound, judging from the clan symbols on every other wall. Think it's supposed to be a fan or a paper lantern. Looks more like a fucking fishing lure to me, but then again, I'm American, not Japanese. An odd thought struck me. That note was written in English. Hell, I'm thinking in English. Oh God, I hope this place speaks English, too. I can't remember Japanese for shit. Knee-deep in thought, I found the kitchen and went about looking for, finding, and fixing a cup of ramen. Once that was done and down my neck, I made for the door and found myself outside, in the village of Konoha. I'll save you the boring and tedious time I had searching for the training fields, but it took me roughly 20 minutes. After I arrived, walking along a forest path for a good 10 minutes, I saw something strange, but familiar. A blond boy in an orange tracksuit, sitting on the ground, leaning against a large wooden post. There was a girl in a vaguely Chinese-looking red dress with garish pink hair next to him. Oh fuck, they really do have anime hair. What the hell gives you pink hair? Did her old man get his stuck in a cotton candy machine? Silently chuckling to myself, I noted their names, mentally applying them to the somewhat familiar faces. Naruto and Sakura, respectively. They looked different from the anime, though only slightly, being that they had far more detail to their expressions. Huh, wonder what today will bring, besides a pain in my ass. Dunno if I should strive to stick to what I remember of the script, or if I should fuck with it. I'm obviously not Sasuke, I don't have that quiet, brooding, emo attitude, and I doubt I can fake it very well or for very long. Well, whatever. Yo, I called, finally getting within earshot. Turning to me, they both enthusiastically pointed and shouted, "You're late." I smirked, it was a reflex, I couldn't help it. And yet, I'm still here before Kakashi. 50 Ryo says he isn't here until after 9. They both stared at me, gawking. Where was the angry, groaned, response they were so used to? I'll pass. Naruto was showing an out-of-character intellect, he knew I'd win. That, or he didn't have 50 Ryo to waste. Hang on a second, Ryo? The fuck is a Ryo? I knew that, said it instinctively when I thought about currency, but I don't know what the fuck it is. Some kind of Naruto-verse equivalent of the yen? Christ, I'm going to keep having these mindfuck realizations all goddamn day, aren't I? Doing my best to hide the growing irritation in my head, I said, "Smart. Either of you eat anything yet?" Hearing this, they both shook their heads, staring at me in abject horror as Sakura whined, "Sasuke-kun. Kakashi-sensei said not to eat breakfast. I can't believe these people are that dumb." Who am I kidding, they're just kids, of course they're dumb enough to believe that. After quirking a brow, I responded, "And do you know why he said that?" She blinked, but before she could respond, I kept going. "That is to torture us for the test, and make us fight on empty stomachs. Believe it or not, it's better to eat and wind up puking than not eating anything and suffering even worse." Here, I reached into my pouch and pulled out 2 ration bars, tossing one to each of them, which they easily caught. Good reflexes. Better than what a child ought to possess. You'll both be useless to the team if you don't have the strength to fight. Not to mention your growling stomachs will give away your positions. Of course, they just stared at me, utterly silent, until I got annoyed and spat. What? Did I grow a second head I'm not aware of? The pair continued to stare, Sakura mumbling, "Sasuke-kun, are you alright? You're acting strange." She held onto the packaged energy bar, but didn't unwrap it. Naruto, on the other hand, had shrugged and chowed down, grimacing all the while. It's like eating corkboard. I snorted a laugh at his expression, remembering eating MREs and freeze-dried survival food for months at a time. Yeah, they're expensive to make, so they cut costs by taking out the flavor additives. And Sakura, as to my change of heart, I had something of an epiphany last night. Sakura was about to speak, when Naruto gulped down the last bite of the nasty-tasting ration bar and rudely interrupted her. "Old you, Epifawa? Right, Naruto's a moron for like the first half of this series. Kid needs some ADHD meds, something awful. Epiphany. It means I realized I was a haughty, emo asshat with no friends, and that I wasn't living for myself, but for the ghost of a dead man. So I said fuck him, and decided I didn't want to be like my bastard brother. This sounds, well, plausible. Or at least it is believable, considering my own happy-go-lucky personality. I'd have to do my best to at least maintain the appearance of being Sasuke, at least for now. But Sasuke-kun. Sakura started to whine, but thankfully, once again, Naruto interrupted her. No friends? Teme, you are the most popular kid in the academy. The boy was outright shocked, his jaw hanging. This kid is going to annoy me with his boundless energy and blatant lack of tact or common sense. Alright, time to see how well I can fabricate a backstory. Popular? TCH, I had fangirls who didn't know a damn thing about me, not unlike Fivehead here. They didn't like me, they liked the image I had, the unapproachable emo Uchiha. Believe me, I'd rather have one girl I enjoy being with instead of a whole horde of brainless bimbos following me around like lost puppies. None of those people were my friends. My frosty tone struck home, as intended, but Sakura flinched at the Fivehead comment. Naruto just looked less annoyed at me than he had a moment ago. Sakura, you better eat up. You look like you haven't eaten in days. She snapped out of her reverie, blinking away whatever thoughts she was entertaining. Oh, yeah, right, thank you. She sounded slightly dejected. I don't much care for anorexic girls, thanks. Naruto piped up. Yeah, thanks Sasuke. After all that, I walked over and plopped down next to one of the wooden posts, leaning my back against it. We were going to be here for at least a couple hours. Well, when I'm right, I'm right. We were there until around 11:30 or so before Kakashi showed up, that lazy, bent prick. Yo, Kakashi arrived in a swirl of leaves, carrying a large alarm clock and 2 bentos, boxed lunches. Ah, crap. Japanese words sounded out in English keep popping into my head, unbidden. That kinda weeaboo retardation pisses me off. Of course, as if we'd choreographed it beforehand, all 3 of us shot to our feet, dramatically pointing at the tall, cycloptic Junin as we shouted, "You're late." He leaned backward comically, as if he'd been buffeted by a strong wind, playing along. Yeah, sorry, I got lost on the... I cut in, intent on being a bit flippant for him trying to trick young kids. On the road of life? Okay, I don't care if you're a Junin or a bloody cage, if I hear that excuse again, I'm burning your precious ICHA collection. The tall man blinked owlishly. Something about his mannerisms told me that was an incredible reaction, complete reflex, not one of his exaggerated reactions meant to make others think he's just a goofball. Especially considering the level of discipline he possesses. Less than a split second later, he did his trademark eye smile, pleasantly saying, "Well, aren't you just a warm, fuzzy bucket of sunshine?" Even at the distance of 8 or 9 feet away, I could smell stale beer on his breath, the musk of sweat and the reek of a wet dog, and just a hint of some kind of perfume. Feminine, but not girlish, something a grown woman would wear. Throwing all that together, particularly the stench of wet dog, I decided to fuck with his head, just a little. Yeah, and right now I'm in a good mood. Just wait until I'm pissed off. What were you doing, anyway? Sleeping in? Boning Sume Inuzuka? Or were you just standing in front of the memorial stone again? Kakashi blinked, hard, a rare look of actual shock in his eye and under his masks. What the hell? How did he know that? What's with this kid? A moment later, having regained his composure, he said, "Have you been following me? Are you sure you're an Uchiha and not a Hyuga?" I shrugged at his offhand pun. Hey, I'm arrogant, but I'm not that stuck up. Hinata excluded from that stereotype, of course. She's just a bit of a stalker, but hey, any hobby but killing cats, am I right? And no, I'm just very good at reading you. The Junin blinked owlishly once more, his mind obviously hard at work, before getting back on topic. Moving on, your test is to acquire these bells. He withdrew the objects from his pocket to hold them up, showing them off theatrically. To pass, you must get a bell within the hour. The one who doesn't, will get sent back to the academy. They will also be tied to one of those posts, and forced to watch while the rest of us eat lunch. For a moment, I considered telling him we just ate to see his reaction, since it would be hilarious, but since Naruto and Sakura objected to the man's plan, I didn't bother. Not that they decided to mention chowing down just before he arrived, either. I idly wondered if he'd been here a while, watching us, and already knew about it. But I brushed off the thought. It was irrelevant. After the little argument between Kakashi and the two dorks, the Junin continued. Now, remember, you're a team from this moment onward. Are there any questions? I raised my hand. Yeah, why are you giving us such a contradictory test? What do you mean? His voice was neutral, so I had no clue if he was surprised. Probably not, ain't much that'd shock that man, particularly after I screwed with his head. Anyway, I mean, we pass or fail as a team, you said so yourself yesterday, didn't you? I remember hearing that somewhere. And yet you're now saying that one of us will be sent back, leaving only 2 promoted to Genin? That in itself is meant to turn us against one another. Not to mention, you're giving us an impossible goal. Individually, there is no way any of us can get those bells from you, a Junin, the legendary copy ninja Kakashi Hatake. The entire point of this test is teamwork, yet you're acting as if this is pass or fail on an individual level. Is there a reason for the deception, or do you just enjoy messing with Genin? He blinked hard. That's the best way I could describe his reaction. You figured all that out by yourself? Just now? Yes, there is a reason, to see if you could overcome your individual goals and put the team's needs ahead of your own. Thank you for ruining that. Good job, he sarcastically congratulated me, once more showing off his eye smile. I used my patented psycho killer smile head tilt. Just for you, Arrow-sensei. Kakashi was taken aback, downright flabbergasted by this kid, Sasuke. The boy was nothing like his psyche profile. It spoke of a depressed, angry, angst-ridden teenager looking to kill his brother. This Sasuke seemed different, though it may not be a bad thing, if he's anywhere near as intelligent as he seemed to be. Kakashi filed that information away, he would speak with the Hokage about it later. And now you're calling me that? I thought that was Minato's thing. Regardless, back to the task at hand. What Sasuke said is right, the goal of this exercise is teamwork, so work together if you want to pass. But you must come at me with the intent to kill. Understand? We all nodded in unison, the other two still slightly in shock at the revelation of the test's true purpose. Good. Now, begin. Of course, we scattered. I dashed to the right, moving in the same direction as Sakura, whereas Naruto. That blockhead decided to take Kakashi head-on. What an idiot. While he went at our sensei with taijutsu, I waited for my own chance. I knew Naruto would create a perfect opening. Several moments later, when Kakashi got behind Naruto, ready to kancho him half to death, I shouted, "Naruto! Drop and back kick." Just as Kakashi was shouting the name of his super awesome, gay technique, Naruto took my advice to heart, dropped to the ground and kicked his leg out, catching Kakashi. Crick crtch. Right in the balls. Oof. OWCH. As Kakashi's eye bulged out, more in shock than in pain, he dropped to the ground, groaning in agony. Being an enterprising individual, Naruto snatched the bells off his belt and took off, headed in my direction. I rushed out of my hiding spot, moving towards his position as Sakura did the same, all of us changing direction and heading for a single spot in the tree line. We'd hide and plan out a strategy before he recovered. Or, we would, except he was a Junin for a reason. Roughly 6 seconds after getting both eggs cracked, he pushed himself back to his feet, growling as he ruefully massaged his aching balls, probably trying not to vomit through his mask. Naruto was grinning like mad, while I was cackling like mad, wondering if Kakashi truly was all that, if Naruto could get the better of him right out of the academy. We were running like hell through the trees when Kakashi descended upon us like a demon, landing a solid kick to Naruto's back and sending him sprawling. The bells went flying, and I dove onto them, just in time for our enraged sensei to send me into a tree with a second ki. Gwa! My back slammed into the tree, knocking the breath from my lungs. Shit, I can barely follow his movements. Damn, he was fast. And that hurt like hell. Entire body feels like I just got sucker punched by a freight train. I had the bells, but he was fast approaching, 10 feet, 5, 3. Falling back on instinct, I turned and rolled out of the way, tucking myself into a ball and just barely avoiding a fist that cracked the bark of the tree I had just been next to, as I pushed myself to my feet. Taking off as fast as I could, I saw Naruto on his feet, moving a different direction, following Sakura. I followed, knowing full well that if I could hardly follow his movements with my eyes, there was no way in hell my body could match Kakashi's. I had to count on avoiding, or outmaneuvering. With a wry smirk, I decided to use my smaller body stature to my favor. We were inside the tree line, so, go low. I ducked, throwing myself to my right, grabbing a tree root to pull myself around, pushing off the tree itself to get myself going. I didn't bother looking back, he was surely just behind me. After another 5 steps I jumped, catching the nearest tree branch in both hands, and used my momentum to spin myself upward and around, intent on getting behind the quick-moving Junin. As he was mid-stride, my feet collided with the small of his back, my body weight and momentum knocking him to the ground, face first. Hey, it pays to think like a monkey. Knowing his skill and speed, I couldn't hesitate. The moment he hit the ground, I took off, using his head as a stepping stone. Oh, he had to be pissed. I know this, since he caught my ankle. Whoa *wumpike. Ow. Shit. With growing apprehension, I turned my head, glancing behind me. And what I caught sight of would make Hannibal Lecter piss himself in sheer fright. The killing intent rolled off of him in waves, actually bringing a chill up my spine. It was, rather invigorating. I take it you want these back? I dangled the bells from my fingers, cheekily taunting him. As he reached for them I snatched them backward, clenching my hand around them, a grin on my face. Sensei. You said our goal was to acquire them. We got them. We passed, according to your rules. I grinned, nice and big and mocking. He decided to rain on my parade, except the rain was piss. I never said the test was over, now did I? You have to hold onto them for the entire hour. Now hand them over, or things are going to get rough. At his tone, I thought on that for a moment. I'm certain he's allowed to inflict non-permanent injuries. That probably includes beating the hell out of us, within reason. In a split second, I gauged my ability and willingness to have my ass beaten proper by someone twice my size. Fuck that, I got's an idea. Well, since you asked nicely. I held out the bells, while he had my shirt bunched up in a fist, holding me still. When his other hand reached for them, I remembered he had his legs spread in a wide stance as he towered over me, with a clear view of prime targets number 1 and 2. I never let my eyes so much as glance there, lest I give away my intent. When he wrapped his hand around the bells in an iron grip, I kicked my foot out, smartly clocking him in the balls for the second time this morning. He already had the bells in his grip, but his hold on my shirt loosened as he groaned angrily, so I scrabbled out of his grasp, turned and ran like hell. Oh, I was going to pay for that later, but it was funny as hell. If you let yourself get kicked there twice, you deserved it. Dumbass. I ran like the wind, ducking and dodging through the trees, before taking a hiding spot and waiting for a moment to catch my breath. When I wasn't immediately grabbed by the scruff of my neck, I looked around for my teammates. They were together, hiding and looking out for myself and Kakashi, hidden under a bush. I could see them quite clearly, because Naruto's orange ass stuck out like an erection at a convent. With a little finesse, I snuck through the underbrush and got a little closer to them. When we all heard something moving, I stopped and looked in the direction it came from out of the corner of my eye, keeping my body entirely still. Movement is what attracts the eye more than anything else. Kakashi staggered out of the tree line a good ways off, walking bow-legged and cradling his smashed nuts. Oh, ho, this was golden. I kinda wish that sadist Anko was here. She'd get a kick out of that and probably poke fun at him. He let untrained genin kick him the balls not once but twice. She'd laugh her pretty tits off at his ineptitude, probably whack him there a third time for good measure. Satisfied that the Junin wasn't actively looking for us right this second, I crawled through the bushes until I got to Naruto and Sakura. So what should we? Sakura whispered, her voice far too loud, like stage whispering. I interrupted, far more quietly. Oi, sorry, but he got the bells back, and I just found out we need to acquire them, and maintain possession of them when the alarm goes off. Cruel bastard. The two just stared. I was really going to have to work on that. Naruto muttered, shit. Well, you were right, we can't take him on conventionally. Any ideas? I grinned mischievously. Of course, I always have a cunning plan. But be aware, now that he's been clocked in the crotch twice, he won't let us get him with that again. Aim for the face next time. Now, believe it or not, he's very homophobic, so what I suggest is that we. Ha 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 ha, I was an evil son of a bitch, there can be no doubt. 30 minutes later, and exactly 4 minutes until the end of the test, as Kakashi walked along the stream, he grumbled to himself, nursing his sore testicles. RRGH. What male justifies hitting his own teacher in the groin? Ought to see how they like it. Or call Anko down here and let her do the honors. As he groaned and moaned, he heard something familiar. Yash. Kakashi, my eternal rival. There you are. As Kakashi turned, he caught sight of Might Guy, his colleague and longtime friend. Of course, he was wearing his trademark green spandex tracksuit and Chunin vest, replete with his ever-present pearly white grin. Not exactly surprised by his presence, Kakashi greeted his old friend. Guy? Well, I could use a distraction. What brings you here? Kakashi raised an eyebrow, wondering why Guy would show up during the genin test. He was usually a very particular sort when it come to propriety and protocol. Might Guy just kept grinning at him, proudly proclaiming, I have found your weakness, Kakashi. Never again will I lose to you, my rival. Once again, his friend didn't know the meaning of the word volume. He was also coming far too close to be comfortable. But Kakashi Hitaki was not one to back down from a challenge, and he found what the flamboyant man said rather interesting. My weakness? Really? Well, what is it, then? He mused, ready to start laughing his ass off at whatever his old friend had come up with. If it was, indeed, his old friend, it wouldn't surprise him if this was simply a ploy by his new team. The boy Sasuke seems remarkably observant. He wouldn't put it past the young Uchiha to know of his friendship with Might Guy. His comrade shouted, my own personal flames of youth. In that instant, Guy tore off his trademark green spandex, revealing a massive foot-long, forearm-thick swinging between his knees, and he dashed forward, seizing the copy ninja in a bear hug. It was official. This had to be a prank by his new genin. Kakashi found the kid's plan to be obnoxious and nauseating, but also surprisingly ingenious as he played along, comically shouted, Gua. Let go. Let me go. Get off of me. He expected something to tug the bells from his belt while he was distracted, and he was not disappointed. Because at that exact moment, Naruto popped out of a nearby bush behind his teacher, creeped over, and snatched the bells off of his belt before turning and dashing back into the tree line, his mission completed. Noting how well they'd planned this, Kakashi mentally relented. He would make them genin. But he would have vengeance for this little farce, and for his sore nuts. Quite suddenly, Might Guy released him, stepping backwards with his trademark grin and swinging horse. Yash. How UNYOUTHFUL. Kakashi, I never would have pegged you for a bigot. Of course, the moment he was released, Kakashi reached out and smacked his old friend right on top of his head, completely nonplussed when the big man disappeared in a cloud of smoke, replaced by a grinning Sasuke. Interesting plan. Disgusting and utterly suicidal. Bringa. Just as the alarm sitting a few feet from him began, Kakashi casually smacked it with the palm of his hand, instantly continuing like he hadn't just moved faster than the human eye could track. But effective, and very well executed. I'm honestly surprised by how well you know me. Seeing as I only learned you would be my students a few days ago, you haven't had a lot of time to study me thoroughly enough to know my interpersonal relationships. Even, I'm almost flattered. I would like to know whom you asked to learn about me. You really had to ask? Sasuke just chuckled, grinning as his teammates approached from the trees, each carrying a bell. It's a ninja village, people around here gossip like schoolgirls. All I had to do after hearing your name was take a peek at personnel records. Wasn't difficult. Your file looked like someone dumped an inkwell on a blank page and glued a picture of you in the corner, mask and all. Wasn't much, but with a general idea of what you looked like, I disguised myself and started hitting bars, hoping to get lucky. The copy ninja blinked owlishly. This kid was dedicated, he'd give him that much. But Kakashi hadn't been to a bar since last week. This made Kakashi suspicious. Ah, followed me to the bar, did you? Surprisingly, the kid shook his head. Nope, never saw you, just overheard some conversations between other Junin about you. Probably a good thing you weren't there. You're perceptive enough to recognize me as the only one not drinking amongst a group of drunken shinobi. Very interesting, Kakashi thought, half believing the kid's story. This kid is going too far as a ninja. Kakashi considered failing them, just for shits and giggles. But they did quite well, better than any other group he has trained. This Sasuke in particular showed extreme intellect, insight, combat ability, and strategic planning. Not to mention, he was willing to bend the rules for the benefit of the team, as the Junin had witnessed before the test had even begun. He has great potential, but his flippant attitude and problems with authority might cause problems. The second, Naruto, showed great combat ability, but a slight lack of intellect and planning. Still, he was fearless, and he did well working with others. Kakashi would need to see more of his capabilities to know what to expect from him. The third he hadn't seen much of. From what he had heard, Sakura is a very intelligent girl with a nasty, violent temper, but also lovesick over Sasuke. To boot, Naruto has a crush on her. Could cause issues with team dynamics. As the copy ninja went over these things in his mind, he considered what he should do. All three of his students looked at him with hope in their eyes. He considered failing them just to see the looks on their faces, but he wasn't that cruel. He wasn't Ibiki, after all. Pass. Ha ha. Yesa. Dat bao. Naruto jumped, pumping his fist. Shanaru. She did the same fist pump, looking decidedly unladylike. Hey, so what's our first order of business, Teach? Are you gonna treat your new students to a meal? You know, to encourage us to bond with one another? Sasuke leaned back against one of the posts, looking slightly smug, but not overconfident. It fit him, somehow. Like he was a man at the top of his game, and he knew it. Kakashi confirmed his earlier analysis. The other two he could handle, but the Uchiha? Sasuke would be trouble. You're just trying to get a free meal, aren't you? Well, I suppose I must. Naruto piped up, still grinning from ear to ear. Awesome, I know the perfect place. Sasuke shot Kakashi a sideways look. I'll bet you 1,000,000 ryo that it's a ramen stand. The Junin raised an eyebrow, somewhat amused. Sorry, but I'm not that gullible. Unable to control himself, the arrogant Uchiha smirked, snarking, and who is the one with smashed testicles here? Kakashi's hand twitched, itching to grab the boy by his throat and throttle him until he puked or passed out, whichever came first. Yup, Sasuke will definitely be trouble. After my extremely provocative taunt, we left the training field and made our way to Ichiraku's at Naruto's behest. Kakashi was still smoldering at my comment, so I made sure to stay out of arm's reach. Otherwise he just might do his best Homer impression, with moi involuntarily starring as Bart. I don't own The Simpsons. Well, while we sat and chowed down, making small talk, my pervert senses started tingling. It feels like someone tickling my happy sack with an ice cube. You cannot ignore it. Trying to look nonchalant while my back shot ramrod straight and my whole body shuddered, I looked right, then left, and caught sight of what tripped my radar. There, in the distance, was the visage of Team 8, with their red-eyed sensei trailing behind her students. One of which was very enthusiastic, whilst the other two were far more reserved. Thinking quickly, I leaned backward, waving. Oi, over here, guys. Plastering my innocent enthusiastic grin to my face, I called them over, guessing that they themselves had just finished their own genin test. Well, judging by how the three genin looked a bit rough, covered in grass stains with leaves in their hair, I was fairly confident in my guess. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Kakashi was staring at me, as were my two teammates. I said nothing, just kept my grin in place. I was sitting next to Naruto, and there were only 6 seats. Mwahahahahahaha. There were 2 empty places to my left. Kakashi was directly to Naruto's right, whereas Sakura was on Kakashi's right, next to the right side wall. Kiba immediately started approaching, his face scrunched up in puzzlement. Kurenai likely went with it since she figured a ramen stand would be cheaper than an actual restaurant. Anywho, when they got closer, and they saw exactly who had been waving, needless to say, Kiba was shocked. Hinata was blushing and staring at her feet, while Shino was unperturbed. I think Kurenai was curious as to my sudden heel-face turn, but she said nothing. Sasuke? Is that you? I grinned, using my Sasuke's good looks to my advantage. The one and only. You guys just finished the genin test? This got enthusiastic, proud nods from all three, but Hinata went right back to staring holes in her sandals. Yeah, but what's with you? You seem, different. He sniffed at me, which would have been weird if it was anyone else. I just shrugged lightly at his comment. Kiba had come over, taking a seat next to me. Shino had followed suit, but Hinata hesitated. Time to set the hook. Nah, I just pulled my head out of my ass. I made sure to then notice Hinata, standing there looking uncomfortable. Oh, sorry, Hinata. Have my seat, I can stand. I grabbed my half-empty bowl, standing up and stepping back, keeping my innocent grin in place. Of course, Kurenai immediately noticed that it was far too innocent, and stared at me a little more intently. Oh, why you don't have to. I waved her off with the words, nah, go ahead. I need to stretch my legs anyway. Kakashi-sensei didn't give us much of a workout. I swear to crap, I could feel the vein pop in his temple. However, Kakashi noticed my intent, I think. Anyway, he stood up, pulling his mask back into place, stepping away from his seat, motioning to Kurenai to replace him. Kurenai, how'd your team do? He distracted her, long enough for me to quietly move away, standing next to Sakura, who looked at me as I ate. Sasuke-kun, what are you doing? She was quiet, of course. The Junin heard, but didn't react, instead focusing on their own conversation. I simply grinned. Watch. Hinata shakily came over, taking the seat I had vacated, her face a dark shade of pink. Hi, Hinata-chan, so you guys passed the Genin test? Naruto greeted her, his constant happy-go-lucky grin firmly in place. Both of Hinata's teammates watched out of the corners of their eyes, wondering what would happen. I could tell, Kiba was preparing to crack up laughing. Hello Naruto-kun. Why yes, we did. Her stutter was nearly as blatant as the blush on her face, but I knew the best was yet to come. That's good to hear. Congratulations, Hinata. I look forward to working with you. Of course, his over-enthusiastic nature got the better of him. Or, well, it got the better of Hinata. Her face resembled a tomato, before her eyes snapped shut, and she started to cascade backwards, about to collapse onto the ground. Of course, Naruto's good sumo-raiden nature didn't let him sit back and watch. He dived over, catching her before she fell off her seat in a dead faint. Kiba busted out laughing the moment he saw she wasn't about to get hurt. Shino didn't react. Weird. Oh, haha. So there Naruto was, overbalanced, barely holding onto Hinata while he was nearly falling off his own seat. It was fairly funny to see, really. Sakura giggled, as Kurenai looked practically homicidal. Kakashi merely watched with disinterest, wondering what would happen next. A little help here? Please? I dunno how long I can stay like this. I could see his rump starting to slide towards the edge of his seat, chuckling as I caught sight of the climax. Hinata's eyes started to flutter, before finally opening, those lavender orbs slowly focusing on the blonde boy supporting her. And when she finally realized she was nose to nose with Naruto and in his arms, of course, she fangirled out on him. Yeah. *thumpike clunk wump. Kiba and myself both busted out laughing, as both blushing tweens landed in a heap on the ground, Tucci himself laughing along with us, while Sakura and Ayame giggled at today's events. Kakashi chuckled as he restrained Kurenai from coming over and murdering Naruto, who was currently on the ground, one of his feet caught on his stool with Hinata on top of him, her s smooshed against his face. Oh, dear Kami, this was glorious. Her face was 2 shades more red than a fire truck as she passed out on top of Naruto. He was comically floundering about, flailing his arms around trying to get Hinata off of him. MMNPH. MMMPH. MMNMMPH. MNUMMPHM. Translation: Gua, help, can't breath, help me, I'm suffocating. Kiba fell out of his chair, laughing his ass off, and Shino actually chuckled. He actually chuckled. An emotion. After 10 seconds of this, Naruto's flailing slowed down, and I figured it was about time to save him before he actually died via mammary suffocation. I gripped the passed-out Hyuga clan heir's shoulders and lifted her off of Naruto, as he heaved in fresh air. Hua, ga, what the hell? I was nearly suffocated and that was when he realized just what was cutting off his airflow. I nearly dropped Hinata, I was laughing so hard. His face turned tomato red and a trail of blood leaked out of his nose, before his eyes rolled back and he collapsed, joining Hinata in dreamland. Bawahahahahaha. They're made for each other. Ahahahahahaha. Kiba panted, laughing his ass off as Akamaru seemed to join him, barking something that sounded suspiciously similar to a snicker. Kurenai finally stomped over, as Kakashi was too busy laughing to stop her, and she picked up Hinata, about to start stomping on Naruto when I stepped in her way, wiping the tears from my eyes. "Ah, leave, I am alone. Ain't his fault he's irresistible to shy stalker girls." "Ooh," Kurenai practically growled, but Kakashi stepped in, wiping a tear from his eye. "I'll deal with him, Kurenai. You might want to get her looked at." Frankly, I was amazed that he could keep an even tone. Of course, Kurenai stomped off while her other two students followed, their meals mostly forgotten. Shino finished his, but Kiba only got a few bites. Kurenai hardly touched her own, and of course, Hinata didn't even get to order her food. Hey, the moment those four were out of earshot, Kakashi, Sakura and I all busted out laughing again. It took a few moments, but we all eventually calmed down enough to check and make sure that Naruto was still breathing. He was. So, I whipped out some red ink and got to work. 5 minutes later, he woke up, looking groggy. "Huh? Wha?" He looked around, then up at us. "Heya, Naruto. Looks like you're finally awake. By the way, Kurenai cut off your, said she'd give it back after you married Hinata." I kept my face completely, utterly, and believably serious. I could tell Kakashi was trying not to smirk, but Sakura looked away, knowing her face would give away my prank. Naruto's face turned into a mask of pure horror as he slowly looked down, and saw the massive red stain on the groin of his trousers. Ah, okay, going deaf was totally worth it to see the look on his face. What it was not worth, was seeing him immediately shove a hand down his pants, frantically groping for his genitals. Well, when he found it, he sighed a breath of relief before glaring at me. I was cracking up, laughing my ass off as he fondled himself in public. Yeah, pretty funny. Kakashi chuckled along with me, and Sakura giggled as she shouted at him to stop playing with himself. After he removed his hand from his trousers and stood up grumbling, I said, "Ah, don't take it personally, you got a nosebleed and that's where it landed. I just used it for a laugh. By the way, Hinata's got a major crush on you, mate." He did a double take, before grabbing his neck as if he had mood whiplash. "Whoa, ow, wait, what? She has a crush on me?" "Yeah, right," he scoffed, myself and Sakura staring at him as if he was an idiot. "I wonder why." "Duh. Yeah, she does." Sakura nodded, staring at him. Maybe this was her chance to finally get him to stop asking her out. No way. She'd have said something if she did. Kakashi, being above such petty drama, stayed out of our conversation as he happily read his smut. I raised an eyebrow. "Dude, she is in love with you. She follows you around in her off time, stalking you. She's insanely shy, and that's why she faints around you. She blushes just from being within 10 feet of you, man." He rolled his eyes. "Nice try. She's probably just got a fever or something." Oh, I considering Gibbs slapping the blockhead, as he deserved it. Then again, considering I just told him Kurenai chopped his off, I suppose he has a right to be doubtful of me. Squick. Hee-hee-ha. Anywho, Kakashi dismissed us, saying he wanted us to report to the same training field tomorrow at 8 o'clock sharp, for our first day of missions. "Sensei, if you're late, I swear to Kami and Jashin I'll burn every one of those books. Then I'll hunt down Jiraiya and make him stop writing them." Kakashi blinked, staring at me. But he had to ask. And just how in the hell would you do that? He's a Sannin, one of the most powerful ninjas in the world. I grinned my most wicked, macabre grin. The kind that would creep out Ibiki. I swear, the Junin shuddered. There is only one thing he fears more than responsibility, Tsunade. And I know how to enrage her to the point of strangling the Sannin with his own intestines. My entire team stared at me, thoroughly creeped out. The worst part? That is entirely true, and plausible. I morphed my evil Stepford smirk back into my happy-go-lucky grin, tilting my head in a you-can-trust-me kinda way. "So don't be late, sensei, otherwise the Kyuubi attack will only be the second worst thing you bear witness to." Oh, all three of them were creeped the fuck out. So, instead of sticking around, I turned and left, walking away while they were still in shock, awe. It makes for one hell of an impression, to say the least. So as I stalked off, whistling a cheery tune, I wondered what I should do. Plans, plans, plans. Plots, schemes, cons. Well, I still need to get used to this body, so there's that. I should also try to get a head start on chakra control, since Scarecrow will be teaching that way too late for it to be of any use in the Chunin exams. Think I'll go back to the training field and start on tree walking. practice my own hand-to-hand and see if this kid's physique is up to par for it. After that, maybe I'll practice some of the jutsu Sasuke learned before I wound up in his place. Speaking of which, I wonder where he is. In my own body? At this point in time. A different place, a different life, a different destiny, in a galaxy far, far away. Sasuke sneezed, still unused to this body. It was too big, too clumsy, and nowhere near as flexible as he used to be. He felt so strong, yet so weak, he couldn't even call upon his chakra. But at this very moment, he didn't care. He wouldn't even want to kill his brother if he were in the same room. Because at this very moment, he was getting a blowjob. Oh, yeah, there is no man alive who, while getting oral for the very first time, can think of anything other than the sensation engulfing his penis. He didn't even know the girl's name, he just woke up, feeling like he was on cloud nine. When he looked towards the source of the ecstasy he was in, he was shocked to find a beautiful woman he'd never before seen, sucking his penis. He didn't even recognize himself. His entire body felt like one huge callus, covered in scars and heavy muscle. Not that something so minuscule meant anything to him, nor the girl who was so diligently swirling her tongue. Ooh, Sasuke involuntarily moaned, as a shudder ran his spine. The girl was naked and had very tan skin, large, buxom and short jet black hair. Her body was toned, she obviously worked out and kept herself in shape. Perhaps she was a ninja? She released his member with a pop, and started stroking the shaft, licking her lips. Yeah, baby? You like that? Say my name. Scream it. Shit. If there was something Sasuke knew about women, they were very peculiar about remembering their names. He had to tread carefully with this. He didn't have but a moment to answer, so he went with something he knew would work. Babe, I can't even remember my own name right now. She stopped jerking him, her eyes widening slightly, blush darkening. Uh-oh. He fucked up. She was gonna bite his off, he knew it. Now he was screwed. Baby, I am going to fuck you so hard. I'm gonna make you scream. He's so good, she thought, her fires lit. Wait for it. Really screwed. If this is a dream, I don't want to wake up. Back to our originally scheduled program. Well, in the midst of my internal monologue, I hadn't been paying much attention to where I was going, and walked flat out into something. Two somethings. Two very soft, perky, yet firm somethings. In the process, I knocked whoever those somethings belonged to, or were attached to, onto the ground. I blinked, registering what had just happened. And registering the feeling of a pair of S being pressed against me, even if only briefly. I looked down to the girl on the ground, who was looking up at me with an annoyed expression. Sorry, I offered my hand, taking in the girl's appearance. Tall for her age, close to my own. Maybe a year older. Dark brunette hair, slight scent of jasmine perfume, light pinkish top, very Chinese in design. Topped off with milk chocolate eyes and two buns on top of her head. Tenten, I do believe. She glared up at me. Hey, watch where you're going. Instead of taking my offered aid, she stood on her own, and I found that she was a bit taller than me. Kind of off-putting, that, considering her glare. My apologies, Miss Tenten. Had my head in the clouds. Or the gutter, in this case, I kept my friendly smile in place, wondering how long she would hold me up with her ranting, complaining. She blinked, her expression going from irate to confused. Huh, Sasuke? Wait, how do you know my name? I have 3 responses to this. We've met before, don't you remember? Hey, I make it a point to know all the pretty girls' names. My Sharingan can read minds. Option that is least likely to get my ass kicked and balls bricked? I raised an eyebrow, smiling. Some say that the Sharingan can read minds. I don't discourage them. She folded her arms, looking decidedly unimpressed. So what am I thinking? Or better yet, what's my surname? I blinked. Well, I never said it was perfect. Now if you'll excuse me, I've tasks to complete. Good day. With a quick sidestep, I got around her, moving in the direction of the training field. Of course, she's the stubborn type, and followed me. Great, now I've got a Tsunere fangirl who's in denial. That's just bloody lovely. And just what tasks is the great, all-powerful Uchiha taking on? Snarkass. Training. Now why are you following me? I just ditched a dozen rabid fangirls not half an hour ago, and I don't need another one. She scoffed, saying, training? Since when does the genius Uchiha need to train to get stronger? And who says I'm following you? I just happened to be going the same way. I was about to give up and ignore her, but I had one last shot. You didn't deny the fangirl bit. And the last thing I need is another Tsunere fangirl, so in advance. No, I'm not looking for a date, a mate, a fuck or a suck. Go away. I could practically feel her glaring at me, eyes narrowed and dangerous. Note to self. Do not piss off women who have sharp, heavy, pointy objects on their person. Well, aren't you East? I rolled my eyes, even though she couldn't see it. Force of habit. I've nothing against anyone for being male or female, as I hate everyone equally. I just can't stand bimbos that lust after me for the image they have in their heads without even bothering to learn who I am, or anyone who makes assumptions about others based on appearances. Take yourself, for example. You're a weapons specialist, so you must have a huge collection of toys. Or Naruto. He wears orange, so he must be a loud, blockheaded idiot. Or moi. I have dark hair and eyes, so I must be emo. I maintained my pace, moving quickly. Hopefully she'd piss off and leave me be. But of course, I'm not that lucky. Naruto is a loud, blockheaded idiot, so that proves nothing. I've never seen you smile until today. That counts as being emo. And what I mean by toys. I smirked, my own crude sense of humor shining through. Time for the killer blow. Toys. You know, dildos, vibrators, anal beads and such. Oh, damn. I could feel the blush and scowl she was now sporting, line of sight or no. I have no such things. I snickered at her embarrassed denial. And yet you know what they are. And when did I mention plural? Besides, that stuff's just the basics. After all that, there's whips, chains, candles, ropes and such. I'm sure you're very familiar with those. I had to hold my mirth in check, as her spluttering was fairly funny. She even stopped walking, red in the face. Score. Hee-hee-ha. Uchiha won, and, damn it, what is he last name? After I finally gave her the slip, I made my way to the training field I'd been in earlier, already planning out my routine. I needed to work on chakra control, so I'd start with tree walking. I tried my damnedest to think back to the training segment in the anime, about how to manipulate chakra. It's like having an extra muscle, one inside of your brain. You simply focus your mind, and then direct it throughout your body. By concentrating it in my chest and using the hand seals for a fireball jutsu, I breathe in, then blow that air outward once it feels like it's gotten hot enough. The problem is that greater amounts of chakra require more concentration, though not as much as making the chakra finer or more dense. In other words, it is a simple matter of practice. And that, I can handle. I set in, cracking my neck and knuckles, staring down my first victim, a massive oak tree. With the utmost care, I concentrated that untrained part of my mind, focusing on the soles of my feet. I could feel it, energy, power flowing through my body. It felt amazing, invigorating, empowering, even. As if I could tear that tree from the ground itself. After a quick double check, I started walking towards it, placing my foot flat on its trunk, and walking straight up. I was walking because it took greater control, and forced me to use my strength, instead of momentum. I got 3 steps, before the bark cracked beneath my feet, and I kicked off, shifting my weight to backflip through the air, landing on my feet. Whump, and unceremoniously collapsing on my ass. Ow, guess I still wasn't used to the balance of this body just yet. My own was slightly top-heavy, due to rigorous training and weightlifting. This one was too light, and lacked the poise I was used to. Standing back up, I dusted myself off, and started again. This time, I took 5 steps before I slipped, nearly landing on my head. These might take a while. Well, 2 painful hours later, and I had it down. I could walk the entire way up the tree, with only slight cracking of the bark. It would do for now, but it wasn't as good as I'd like. After kicking off the tree, I landed in a handstand before flipping myself backward a few times and back onto my feet. I was still damned good as an acrobat, unfamiliar body be damned. In fact, this lighter body made parkour much easier. I stretched out my sore muscles and thought on my next exercise. Well, I do need to work on chakra control, so I need a way to do that while multitasking. Hey, I do have an idea. Might be nothing, but it's better than twiddling my thumbs. Taking a seat on the grass, relaxing my body, I focused my mind. With some effort, I concentrated my chakra, building as much as I could, until it hurt. When this happens, the area where the chakra has gathered stings something awful, like carpal tunnel, or a pinched nerve, almost. Anywho, instead of releasing it, I tried to get it to move. To flow like water, using my chakra network as its canal, cycling it throughout my entire body. It was difficult at first. Once it started moving, it was easy to keep it in motion. It felt strange but wonderful. As though I was in tune with myself and my surroundings, if you want to be poetic about it, that is. It felt slightly uncomfortable for a moment, until I tried to adjust how fast it flowed, and kept it in time with my heartbeat. That was when it felt, right. Natural, even, as if it was something that had been missing my whole life, and I had just now reacquired it. Pretty fucking weird, but awesome. So here I sat, legs crossed, hands in my lap with eyes closed, meditating. It took a few moments, but I noticed something. There was someone else here, watching me. I could just feel it. I inhaled deeply, hoping to catch the slightest whiff of a scent, and I did. Perfume. Light, but it was there. And it was jasmine-scented. Yes, Tenten? I spoke loud enough to be heard, but didn't move. I was rewarded a second later, when I heard a muffled curse and leaves ruffling, followed by footsteps. How do you know I was there? I was aware of your presence the moment you came within 50 feet. Stay downwind of others if you don't want to get caught. Better yet, don't wear jasmine-scented perfume when you're in an area that isn't indigenous to them. Basics of concealing your presence. Pretty sure she was perplexed, judging by her voice. The hell? Are you an Inuzuka? With a snort, I responded, no, there just isn't any jasmine growing around here. Kinda tipped me off. Plus Sakura is the only other girl who would follow me this far, and she wears perfume that smells like cherry blossoms. I still wonder if she wears the stuff because she likes it, or for her name. Tenten sighed, walking closer. When she didn't go away or say something for several minutes, I asked, is there something you want, or are you just bored? Cloth rustling, she shrugged. It was this or listen to Lee and guys shouting back and forth. Okie day, point taken. Fair enough. Care to join me, then? Okay. Just what are you doing, anyway? Meditating? I smiled. Something like that. I'm practicing a new chakra control exercise, Kappa Squap, and I'll explain. I expected her to say no and leave, but she came over, sitting next to me. Build up as much chakra as you can, to the point of pain, but don't release it. Maintain and try to shift it. First in your hand, and get it to flow to your other arm, and from there to your legs, one at a time. It's easy to keep it moving, just don't let it stop, 'cause it's a pain in the ass to get it moving again. I looked at her from out of the corner of my eye. This girl is rather cute. She didn't say a word, but had a look of concentration on her face for a few moments. A bead of sweat formed on her cheek, but a few moments later, she relaxed, breathing again. Feels strange. I shrugged, the first movement since I'd sat down. Get the flow in time with your heartbeat and it feels perfectly natural. At my words, she turned to look at me. Who told you about this, anyway? Shaking my head, no one. I came up with it an hour ago. I'd prefer if you didn't tell Neji about it, though, not yet, anyway. The guy's head is big enough as is. She gave me a puzzled look. I can understand not wanting to share training methods, but why Neji? Granted, he's a bit stuck up, but... My expression soured. Not just stuck up, he's got a bloody telephone pole up his ass. Until the day he extricates his head from his colon, I'm not helping him. Not gonna give him another reason to think he's better than others. Condescending prick. She blinked, hard, staring at me. You're one to talk. Have you even met him? Once. Other than that, I've seen and heard all I need to. I'd say it'll be around 8 months until he figures out that the destiny he keeps preaching about is a load of horseshit. There is no fate but what we make. True enough. Terminator 2, Sarah Connor. Which I do not own, of course. She blinked again, before responding, and how do you know that? I realized it when I thought on my reason for living. I was going to kill Itachi, and restore my clan. I had nothing else to live for. I thought long and hard on that, and realized I hadn't smiled in half a decade. That I hadn't been happy once in all that time. It took some soul searching, but I figured out that killing my brother wouldn't make me happy, and that even if I resurrected the Uchiha, I still wouldn't be happy. I would only be doing what others expected of me. I paused for breath, which she took as an opportunity to make an observation. You found that you were just a tool in the machinations of others. I smiled, nodding. Yes, that, and I was sick of being called the emo duck butt. I was living for the sake of a man I hated. I finally realized I didn't really want that. From that moment, I wanted to live for myself, not following the trail left for me by others. So I broke free of my fate, and vowed to live for myself, and for those precious to me. It's rather freeing, really, when you cast off the forced obligations of others. She smiled. You want to enjoy your life. You had an existential epiphany, My dad once told me to live for today, but look forward to tomorrow, and don't forget to smile. Hey, your moment of clarity makes mine look like figuring out I shouldn't stab myself in the foot. I raised an eyebrow. So what was it? Or would you rather not tell? With a shake of her head, she replied, no, I should. Only fair if I do. I figured that Neji has something keeping him from having the realization you did. That he's living for someone else, and not himself. I raised an eyebrow. Again, so you like him. You asked him out and he blew you off, I assume? She gave a slight nod, looking sheepish. Yeah, it took me until today to realize he wouldn't be interested. Not until he, as you so eloquently put it, pulls his head out of his ass. I chuckled, thinking back on the segment where Naruto trounces Neji in the Chunin exams. What's so funny? Glancing her way, an enigmatic smirk upon my lips, I asked, wanna know the future? She blinked, but I continued before she responded. Neji is going to learn the hard way that hard work trumps natural talent every time. And the one who will teach him is the orange-clad blockhead we all know and love. I'll bet anything on that. She raised an eyebrow, grinning. Yeah, right. Care to put your money where your mouth is? I gave her a tranquil smile. Of course. How much are you thinking? I saw dollar signs in her eyes before she said, 50,000 ryo. Now, to us genin, this is a lot of coin. A D rank mission is 5,000 ryo, whereas a B rank is roughly 50,000. A ranks are 100,000 and up, whereas S rank missions are several 100,000 ryo each, or several million. But when I consider the fact that I'm the heir to the entire Uchiha fortune. Yeah, 50 grand is a drop in the bucket. Done. But if I win, I'd like a date with you. She blanched, before shouting. Wait, what? I blinked. You heard me. If Naruto teaches Neji the error of his ways, I'll take you out on a date. If Neji remains the same stuck-up snobby self after, say, the Chunin exams, then I'll write you a check for 50 grand. Deal? I held out my hand, smiling. It didn't take long for her to reach out and take it, thinking, there's no way in hell that dork would ever get through to her teammate. And a free 50,000 ryo to boot? This is too easy. And even if I lose, it's just some silly date with Sasuke. And he isn't bad looking, either. Deal. You know, you're nothing like I remember. In the academy you were always stoic and cold to everyone. I shrugged. I got a rather harsh wake-up call. The thing that set off my little existential crisis was, well, shocking, to say the least. I can't explain it to you, but the long and the short of it is that politics suck, and history is written by the victor. Our entire childhood has been filled with lies that serve those in power, and the ones who suffered for it are still paying the price. Well, that sounds enigmatic. She sniped, her expression turning sardonic. As I said, I can't explain it to you. I will announce the truth to the entire village one day, but I lack the influence and favor to do so. Perhaps when Naruto becomes Hokage. I deadpanned, waiting for her reaction. She busted out laughing. Yeah, right, that'll be the same day I marry you. I stopped and sat there for a second, before busting out laughing, tears streaming down my face. Oh, the irony. My spleen. Huh? What? What's so funny? As I wiped the tears from my eyes and stopped rolling around, I sat up, still chuckling. Oh, what you said is so ironic it's killing me. Tenten simply sat there, puzzled, staring at the cackling Uchiha. After, neither of them said a word, sitting in amicable silence. After another hour or so of practicing my new exercise, I got up, stretching my stiff muscles. I offered my hand to Tenten, which she accepted this time. We said our goodbyes and went our separate ways. I left the training field, wondering what I should do for the rest of the evening. Well, I had nothing planned and I've finished all the training I needed for the day, so that leaves quality time with my new teammates. Fucking lovely. Welp, I know where to find Naruto around this time of day. Either in his apartment or at Ichiraku's. And since we just ate there a few hours ago, his apartment complex is the most likely place of his current occupation. Shouldn't be too hard to find. I just gotta find the place decked out in orange that reeks of ramen. Haha, I already had a good idea of where it was. Didn't take long. I followed my nose. Directions from Ayame. Actually, it was a short walk away, so I moved towards the apartment complex with hands in pockets, whistling a cheeky tune all the while. 10 minutes later, I was standing in front of an apartment door, raising my hand. I knocked twice, and waited a beat. *FWUM Polska. I heard a crash from inside, followed by muttered curses and the sound of something heavy being dragged across the floor. Okay. The door opened a crack, and Naruto poked his head out, staring at me. Yo, he continued to stare at me. Sasuke? What are you doing here? I raised an eyebrow. I figured you'd be bored sitting around by yourself, so I came over to bug ya. The look on his face was priceless. Okay. He invited me in, and I found a slightly messy, but serviceable, apartment interior. Oddly enough, it wasn't decked out entirely in orange, but I could smell ramen coming from what I assumed to be the kitchen area. You live here on your own, Naruto? Yeah, Iruka and the old man come check on me every now and again. It's alright. You live by yourself, too, don't you? I nodded. But it gets lonely having no one around after a while. The Uchiha compound feels like a ghost town these days. He smiled sadly. Yeah, I know what you mean. We were both quiet for a few moments, reflecting on our shared solitude. Hey, you've still got a crush on Sakura, don't ya? Why do you ask? I smirked. And judging from his reaction, I'll take that as a yes. I don't know what you see in her, man. I still say you should ask Hinata out. Why do you keep telling me that? Why don't you ask her out? I shrugged. I would. Hell, she's even my type. Cute, dark hair, ivory skin, very well endowed. But she's got the hots for you, mate. Blocking's not cool. Besides, you deserve to find a cute girl that won't beat you half to death for complimenting her. I joked, but I was entirely serious. She was my type. But I've seen the looks the villagers gave Naruto. It'd just make my day to see the looks on their faces if they saw him and the Hyuga princess walking down the street, hand in hand. Or kissing, haha. There's no way, he replied, rather dourly. I raised an eyebrow. Why not? What's there not to like? Aside from your face, that is. No offense, but that's the face only a mother could love. Kidding? He started scowling at me until I burst out chuckling. When the blonde didn't say anything, I kept up. Come on, man, what's the matter? If I was trying to punk you, I'd set you up with Ino. Or an Inuzuka. Hey, or Tenten. Haha, that'd turn out real well. You'd look like a pincushion. A screaming, orange pincushion. You. I blinked. Me? Whoa, no offense, but I don't do the two dudes thing. No thanks. He rolled his eyes. That's not what I meant. You've changed overnight. Why are you trying to be my friend, anyway? Before today you acted like you were better than everyone. He's a hell of a lot smarter than he lets on, methinks. I realized I was a jerkass with no real friends. And I chose you, because you looked like you needed a friend. Someone to pick you up and dust you off when you fall, and someone I can rely on to get my back in a scrap. I've seen the way you're treated, and frankly, it pisses me off. Ignorant people with a grudge who are taking it out on the wrong person, but don't have the balls to face their own demons. Naruto flinched at the word demon, but didn't respond for a moment. They try. I raised an eyebrow. They try? What? Don't tell me you actually believed Mizuki. Time to set da hook. His head shot up as he stared at me, jaw-dropping. How do you know that? Not important. What is important is that you need to get your head on straight. You're not a demon, you're not the Kyuubi. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise, 'cause they're full of shit. He balked. But what he said, it's why everyone calls me a demon. It's why, my parents. Just as he started to sulk, sob, I reached over and calmly, friendly, and ever so gently smacked the stupid out of him. Ow, what was that for? He rubbed his sore spot. The one I'd clocked, it just so happened. For being a blockheaded, gullible idiot. If you were the Kyuubi, you'd have gone on a rampage and destroyed the village by now for the way they treat you. Now, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but if you really want to know what your parents were like, go and ask the Hokage. Before his answer, tell him you want to know about Minato and Kushina. He blinked, staring at me. Minato and Kushina? I nodded. When he looks surprised, point at the picture of the fourth Hokage on the wall. That will get you the answers you want. And when he asks how you figured this out, tell him you well, make something up. Just don't mention me, okay? I don't feel like spending the evening with Ibiki. Not that he understood my reference to the big guy, hardly any of the genin know who he is. He still looked suspicious. Suspicious. Man, what a word. Suspicious. This is a video game reference. Why are you telling me this? I shrugged, adopting a "who gives a flying fuck" expression. Because you deserve to know the truth. I can't tell you how I know, but I can tell you some of what I know. But be warned. Once you hear something, you cannot unhear it. You've still got time to see the old man if you want. I'll go ahead and get out of your hair. I patted his shoulder reassuringly, turned, and walked out. I'd give him time to think and decide. That went better than expected. Well. I made my way back to the Uchiha compound, back to the house I remembered waking up in. Finding it, I walked inside, yawning. I wasn't sure why, but I was tired. Exhausted. Must be this body. It isn't as used to exertion as I am. Well, this is gonna be a pain in the ass. Hell, I'm still sore from tree walking. I am not looking forward to fighting without armor. Speaking of which, that's going to be the next thing I change. I'll go have a look around some of the shops after Tomo's chores, missions. If I have to chase after that damned cat, I am going to murder Kakashi. With Naruto. After Sasuke left, Naruto sat at his kitchen table, thinking. I'll do it. He stood up, turning and walking outside, heading for the Hokage tower. He had some questions for the old man. He made it to the tower in record time, went up the stairs, and knocked on the door to the Hokage's office. Enter. Walking inside, Naruto saw old Sarutobi filing paperwork. Naruto, my boy, how are you? I'm alright, G-san. The old man always brought a smile to Naruto's face. Even in his 70s, he still works hard for the village, caring for each and every one of its people. What can I do for you, Naruto? He smiled a grandfatherly smile. He thought of Naruto as one of his own grandchildren, as much so as Konohamaru. I wanted to ask you about my parents, Minato and Kushina. Sarutobi's entire face twitched, but he forced his expression to remain grandfatherly, despite his surprise. Now where did you hear those names, Naruto? His tone was even and calm, despite the sheer shock of what he'd just heard. Instead of answering, Naruto pointed at the picture on the wall. The one on the far right, of a young, handsome man with bright blonde hair. Hiruzen paled, as he realized that Naruto had learned the truth. Naruto, who told you about this? He asked me not to tell you his name. G-san, will you tell me the truth now? Please? The old man sighed, wondering just who could have told him. Kakashi? No, he didn't even know that Minato had a child. Tsunade? Definitely not. Jiraiya? Hell, no. They both knew that those two had a child, but they didn't know who Naruto was. Very well, Naruto. I suppose you're old enough to know the truth now. But I need you to tell me who told you. It's important for both your safety and theirs. Naruto shifted uncomfortably. He didn't want to lie to the old man, but he also didn't want to break Sasuke's trust. Can you promise me you won't punish him for it? Hiruzen nodded, figuring he would deal with the shinobi in question appropriately, depending on the circumstances. Sasuke. The Hokage blinked. Sasuke? Sasuke Uchiha? Naruto nodded. Hiruzen blinked again. Just how in the hell did that brat figure out who Naruto's parents were? Well, he would deal with that in the morning. For now, though, Naruto, what you've been told is true. Your mother was Kushina Uzumaki, and your father was the fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze. Naruto's jaw dropped. My dad was the Yondaime? As his befuddled mind processed this, he thought long and hard. He realized his last name was that of his mother, not his father. But, why? Why did no one tell me who he was? The Hokage sighed. Your father was a war hero. During the last Shinobi World War, he became infamous for slaughtering entire battalions of Iwa ninjas. They would do anything to spite his memory, and if they knew he had a son. He splayed his hands, to emphasize helplessness. But he sealed the fox. Why did he? Naruto could feel his eyes tearing up, as he realized what Mizuki had said wasn't entirely false. The fourth Hokage, his own father, had sealed the Kyuubi into his own son, making him into a martyr for his own village. One that was hated by all the people he'd unwillingly saved. Ingrateful bastards. Your father was the most honorable man I ever knew. He would not ask someone to sacrifice their child, if he was unwilling to give up his own. Naruto, your father's last wish was that you be seen as a hero, for containing the Kyuubi. And I have failed him in that respect. For a moment, he didn't look like the Hokage. He looked like a sad, tired old man, who's seen far too much in his time. But it vanished, just as quickly as it had come. As Naruto sobbed silently for a short time, the old man stood up and walked over to one of the shelves, retrieving a large, thick book. When he returned to his seat, he asked, "Naruto, it won't mean much, but would you like to look at your family album?" His tear-stained face immediately shot upward, looking at what Hiruzen had pulled from the shelf. Sniff. Yeah, I'd like that. Back with Sasuke. After a good dinner and some light stretching, I finally went to bed. As I lay there quietly, reflecting on what today's events have brought me, I couldn't help but wonder what was in store for me. A new life, one filled with excitement, thrills, intrigue, and ninjas. I mean, really, what's better than ninjas? And I'm one of them. Sweet. And yet, I thought on what I had lost. A life, some good friends, many casual lovers, and my own vengeance. But then again, I wasn't very likely to kill him. Wait, who was I trying to kill? I can't remember. Wait. Stop. Go back. Rewind. Replay. Click. Who am I? Who am I? Sasuke Uchiha. Not good. Very not good. Ungodly not good. I can't remember my name. It's Sas. Shit. Raw. Fuck. Damn it. Stop. Breathe. Relax. Focus. What is your name? Sasuke Uchiha. That's not my name. It's the name of the person whose body I am currently occupying, if that makes sense. But, I can't remember my own name. Now that I think of it, I can't remember my friends' faces, nor their names. Sarah. That's the one name that shines through. All the others are meaningless. Why? Why can't I remember? Is it because Sasuke's memories are replacing my own? If that's the case, why can I still clearly recall how to strip, clean, maintain and use every firearm I've ever owned? I still remember how to drive a car, even a stick shift. And the storyline of Naruto? And of Code Geass, Mass Effect, Resident Evil, Black Lagoon, Avatar? Damn it, none of this makes sense. This isn't right. It's only my personal memories that are fading, and all in the course of a day. This is not good. If I'm not careful, I could wind up entirely forgetting who I am. Most definitely not good. I'd have to really think up a good solution to this. In the morning. Fuck, I'm tired. Anko. Early morning, well before dawn, the old man had sent someone to fetch her hungover ass. Still yawning, she shunshined halfway across the village, finally entering the tower. Mornin' Hokage-sama. Stifling another yawn, she greeted the great third Hokage, seeing his worried visage through half-lidded eyes. Good morning, Anko-chan. I'm afraid I have what might be a difficult mission for you. Her ear perked up at this. She loved a challenge. MMHM? The third interlaced his fingers over his desk. Kakashi has reported that Sasuke Uchiha is very different from what he expected, as if he became a different person overnight. Yesterday evening, Naruto came in and told me that Sasuke informed him of a secret that only 5 people in this entire village are privy to, including myself. You will fetch him, and bring him here this morning. After hearing his explanation, I will decide whether or not you will become his watcher. Now go. The kunoichi nodded, and left to go look in on the brat. Sasuke. In the morning, I got up and yawned, then opened my eyes to find. Holy shit. I jumped, hopping back in the bed as my sleep-crusted eyes bugged out. Squatting there on the edge of my bed, with her bloody sandals on my sheets, too, damn it, was Anko Mitarashi, dressed in her usual garish outfit. A fishnet bodystocking, miniskirt, and beige trenchcoat. What? You'd think waking up and finding a beautiful woman on your bed would be a good thing. Okay, I admit, she's hot. If it weren't for the fact that I know full well that a Tokubetsu Junin doesn't make house calls to Genin without reason, I'd probably have a boner. I'm waiting for her to spell out the reason she's here. Ahem. I blinked owlishly at her, drawling, not when they've got their bloody sandals on your sheets. Hop off. She rolled her eyes, stepping off my bed and staring at me as I, too, got up. Now, is there something I can help you with, Miss Mitarashi? She quirked an eyebrow with a coy smirk. Miss Mitarashi? Well, aren't you well-mannered? I glared at her. I'm trying not to be rude to you for just breaking into my room. We're ninja, after all. You'd think they'd have decent locks in a ninja village, but oh, no. By the way, fair warning, if I find my fridge empty, I'll skin you. Just how long were you sitting on my bed watching me, anyway? She casually inspected her nails. About an hour. I blinked again. This is starting to annoy me. Okay. And why were you watching me sleep in the wee hours of the morning? Are you secretly related to Hinata? Anko started chuckling at my comment. Nope. Hokage asked me to fetch you when you got your candy ass out of bed. Oh, this is just fucking lovely. Just what I need right about now. Naruto must have spilled his guts about me. Uki day, then. And, I have to ask, why did he send you and not one of the Anbu to abduct me in the middle of the night? Or my own sensei, for that matter. She shrugged, a gesture that nearly opened her trench coat enough to reveal her lovely S for my viewing pleasure. Nearly. Damn it. Dunno. I'm just supposed to escort you to his office before you leave. Huh. Well, mind letting me get dressed? She raised an eyebrow, grinning smugly. Oh, bashful, are we? Damn it, I am not letting her get the last laugh. I went this entire time without even looking at her tits, man. A blatant lie, that's torture. Rolling my eyes flippantly, I responded, no, I was hoping you'd be courteous. But if you really want to watch, that's your prerogative. I immediately removed my shirt, dropping it, and pulled off my shorts, turning as I tossed them over my shoulder. Clocking Anko right in the face with him. Oh, I was cracking up, even if I'd regret that sooner rather than later. Just as I pulled down my skivvies, her face turned bright red, realizing she'd been played. After that was done, I went over to one of my dressers and started rooting around for an outfit. I settled on the same as usual. Underwear, mesh underarmor, cargo pants, and an Uchiha high-collar shirt, this time a black one. Gloves, belt, packs, holster, weapons, and I was good to go. I picked up my bandana and tied it in place, before turning back to Anko. She was still blushing slightly, brows furrowed as she glared at me. What, you thought I'd get all flustered? Despite being thrown off, she kept her voice even as she growled, don't get smart with me, Gaki. Gaki? Roughly translates to brat, or pest, I think. I chuckled lightly. Easy, Viper girl. No need to get hostile. After I was dressed, I walked out of the room, Anko following. I went straight to the bathroom, and when Anko nearly followed me inside, I turned to her with a ed eyebrow and eyed grin. What, you going to hold it for me? She immediately blinked, blushed, turned and leaned against the wall across the hall. Don't you dare try to leave. I won't be as nice as the Anbu would. Hey, she's cute when she blushes. Not that I vocalized that, she might take offense. After taking a piss, giving my teeth a quick brush, I went to the kitchen, where she was leaning against one of the walls. I made a beeline for the fridge, and pulled out a package of cold-cut lunch meat. I pulled a box of pre-made dango out of the freezer, before tossing it to Anko. Microwaves on the counter. I didn't pay any mind to her as I opened the plastic bag of turkey and ham, before tearing into it. Breakfast of crackheads, she sniped, popping several of the dumplings into the microwave. Hungry. Need protein. And you shouldn't talk, with your sweet tooth. Touché. I polished off the meat, then grabbed a glass and filled it with water from the tap, drinking deeply. Once breakfast was done and over with, I noticed Anko was staring at me. Yes? She had an unreadable look in those beautiful chocolate eyes. I was wondering how you knew my name. I replied with a shrug. You're hated nearly as much as Naruto. It's fairly easy to pick up on who the villagers dislike, as they're not exactly quiet about it. Huh, she grunted, having opened the microwave and flipped the dumplings over, before hitting the button to turn the device back on. Which I was surprised to see, kinda like the TV. Really, ninja and modern technology? I leaned against the counter and cracked my neck. It had been feeling stiff all morning. So your sensei is Kakashi, huh? She broke the silence with a question. Yep, guy's a lazy pervert. You'd never think he's actually one of the strongest ninja in the village. Only thing about him that irks me is that he's always late, and gives shitty excuses. I'd be fine with it if he spoke the truth, but I swear. Lost on the road of life? A black cat crossed my path? A little old lady needed help getting across E Street? Bloody hell, if he just said he was screwing Sume or staring at the memorial stone, I wouldn't say a word. Anko's eye twitched. Screwing Sume? As in, Sume Inuzuka? I looked over at her, ing a brow. Yeah, why? When he showed up to our genin test late, He smelled like a sweaty, wet dog. With very strong undertones of musk and perfume, I might add. I'd bet 50 ryo he was in bed with her and woke up late. Her eyes narrowed, and she looked very pissed off. Oh, no reason. Aha, you've slept with him, haven't you? It was a statement, not a question. She just had to ask, is it that obvious? I nodded, as it was very obvious from her reaction just now. She sighed, looking slyly glum. I wouldn't say we were dating, since neither of us mentioned becoming exclusive again. But yeah, it was more than just casual. Wait, I shouldn't be saying this to a kid. I rolled my eyes petulantly. Old enough to kill, old enough to drink, fuck, smoke and cuss. Your words, not mine. She blinked, minutely stunned by my words. Fair enough. Just last night he told me he wanted us to be nothing more than friends with benefits. Now I know why, at least. I shrugged once again. My shoulders were starting to get a little sore. He's not known for his tact or social skills. Personally, if you want a life partner, you'd be better off with Naruto. She barked a harsh laugh. Ha, yeah, right. A kid half my age, that'd go over real well. I shrugged. Okay, definitely sore. More than enough stretching for one day. 12 years isn't much, once he's a bit older. Then again, once he pulls his head out of his ass, he'll realize that Hinata has a crush on him. If it makes you feel better, I wouldn't mind. She blinked owlishly, sardonically saying, yeah, that's real comforting. I'm attractive to jailbait. It was my turn to bark out a laugh. Ha, don't feel too bad. 2 or 3 years and it's only immoral, not illegal. She blinked, opened her mouth, shut it. Then opened it again. You know what? I can deal with that. People already give me the stink eye when they think I won't notice. The microwave dinged again, and she pulled out 2 sticks laden with glazed dumplings. As she chowed down, we made more small talk. Say, did they execute Mizuki yet? Or have they not figured out who he's working for? She stopped chewing for a moment. How do you know about that? This kid was remarkably well informed, far more intelligent than he seemed. No wonder Cyclops ran to tell the Hokage he was acting odd after only meeting him twice. I raised an eyebrow. A leaf ninja tries to trick Naruto into stealing the sealing scroll so he can take it for himself, and you think that wouldn't get around? Yeesh, Naruto's retold the story of how he beat Mizuki to a pulp at least 3 times. And I remember that limp prick, his brain's too small to come up with that on his own. Guy's got more hair than brain cells. Kinda reminds me of Ino, now that I think about it. She swallowed her mouthful of food, eyeing the kid warily. No, he hasn't talked, yet. Ibiki's already started throwing things in frustration. For someone so stupid, that traitor is remarkably resistant to interrogation. I chuckled, imagining the big guy yelling and tossing chairs around. That bad, huh? Well, he was a pushover if Naruto could pound him into the dirt without a scratch. The boy's over at tea and I shouldn't have too much difficulty making him talk. I'd say put his nuts in a vice if I thought he had any. Anko had just taken a bite, but she coughed and choked, laughing with tears in her eyes as she tried not to choke on her food. ULP. Gah, that's good. Ha 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 ha, I like you, kid. You're my kinda genin. It was one of my favorite tactics. Interrogation 101. Personally, I'd put an axe in his gut and start twisting. Then whisper a few sweet nothings in his ear. Something along the lines of, oh, I dunno, you have 5 seconds to start talking before I strangle you with your own intestines. Brutal, but effective. Or you could always do it the Lothar way. Walk in with a hacksaw and tell him you're gonna cut his bollocks off before asking some questions. Go read Exterminatus now. Bloody hilarious webcomic. Anko chuckled darkly. That last one's been done. Very efficient. I think Ibiki's got a running tally of how many times some poor schmuck thought he was bluffing. I couldn't resist chuckling at the though of Ibiki sighing, then adding another tick mark to a small chalkboard in the interrogation room. Hee hee, well that's nice. Love life aside, you been getting on alright? She shrugged, picking her teeth with one of the dango sticks. Can't really complain. Not dead yet, anyway. Seeing her watching me so closely, I decided to fuck with her head a little, if only for shits and giggles. Hey, if only everyone thought that way. We'd never hear people bitching about petty problems. Hey, that seal giving you any trouble lately? She opened her mouth to respond when she stopped dead, her eyes widening. How do you know about that? Her voice was accusatory, and she grasped the side of her neck in reflex. I suppressed the urge to roll my eyes, stifling a chuckle. Believe it or not, I'm not the naive genin I look like. I hear things. Things people only discuss when they think they won't be heard. Your former sensei really hates the village, you know. And he's got some crackpot scheme to attack us within the year. I figure out of everyone, you'll be the first to notice when he rears his ugly head. Anko continued to glare at me, growling, is that an accusation? Her eyes narrowed, but otherwise, her expression remained the same, despite her dangerous tone. You know, she's even cuter when she's angry. Hardly. To the extent of my knowledge, you hate Orochimaru more than anyone. And from the reports, that seal reacts to his presence. If I thought you worked for him, I would have kept my mouth shut, or found a way to eliminate you. I'm not stupid, thanks. She relaxed slightly, but didn't take her eyes off me, the intelligence spinning in her eyes. And just what reports are you talking about? I looked at her as if she were an idiot, my patented, you are lucky I cannot force choke you, stare. Sasuke's facial features naturally shift into this expression quite often. My father was the chief of police. My brother was an Anbu captain. After my brother's betrayal, even before the Anbu broke in to tear the place apart, I went through every scrap of paper in both of their offices, searching for a reason. I found none, but you'd be amazed at what people hide amongst tax forms. What I did find was shocking, to say the least. Our village has many secrets, even for a ninja village. Her expression turned dubious. Secrets? She parroted, her voice now sounding as cute as she looked. The kind that throws everything you know in a blender and pisses on it, before lighting it on fire. Nearly everything we know is truth, is a lie. I'll leave you with this. Do not trust Danzo, and never turn your back on him, or root. He stole many of my family's eyes, including that of Shisui before his death, something my brother was blamed for. That old bastard has an agenda, one that would put Orochimaru's to shame. More than that, I cannot say. Danzo, the old man on the council? That warhawk? She looked puzzled, and completely thrown for a loop. Well, she's not the brightest bulb around, that's for sure. But she's cute. While she tried to work out what I'd said, I turned and started for the door, calling back, come on, we've wasted enough time for now. I'd rather not take after Kakashi and be late on my first day. She hurried after me as I pulled on my sandals and left, before we made our way to the Hokage tower. It was still dark out, not even 7 in the morning, yet. Shouldn't be too bad. If the old man asks too many questions, I'll play it off by saying it was buried in the tax reports in my father's office. Excellent excuse. Good thing I'm a damn good liar, even if Sasuke isn't. Took us another 10 minutes to get to the tower. Once there, Anko took point and knocked on the door, walking in at the Hokage's say-so. I brought the boy, Hokage-sama. Despite her inner turmoil, confusion, she was a consummate professional, and sounded the part. Very good. You're dismissed, Anko. She nodded, turned and left, leaving me standing before the Hokage. With his piercing stare. You wanted to see me? Yes. You had a discussion with young Naruto yesterday? Aha. I was right. Yes. What of it? I didn't sound curt, by the way. Difficult, but I tried to sound, respectful. Tried being the keyword. Did you mention anything of his parentage? I raised an eyebrow. I spoke the truth. I wasn't going to lie to a friend about a sensitive subject. The third nodded sagely. Very well. I'm not going to berate you for revealing an S-ranked secret, as you were never sworn to secrecy. However, how did you learn of this? I blinked owlishly, deadpanning, really? He's a dead ringer for the fourth, has the same hair and eyes, and was born the same day Minato and Kushina died. Which is also the same day that the Kyuubi was imprisoned, defeated. Wasn't too hard to figure out. Honestly, how has no one else figured this out, yet? Is this village full of idiots? Does our sensei know? The old man sighed, looking fairly sardonic. No, no one but myself, my advisors, and one of the Sannin are aware of this. Now you, and Naruto, as well. Interesting. Wonder how far I can take this without getting strapped to a chair and mind probed. Well, it concerns him, so I'm not sorry. He deserves to know. Not to mention, there were a few reports in my father's office that gave me a clue. Oh, yeah. Before I forget, you do know that Orochimaru is planning to attack the village, right? He blinked, hard. Are you serious? I nodded solemnly. Of course. During the next Chunin exam, I believe. He is currently the leader of Otogakure, the Hidden Sound Village, and supposedly has a deal going with Hidden Sand. I can explain my reasoning, if you'd like. Do so. He deadpanned, staring holes in me. This is going easier than I expected. There were some reports in my father's office about his suspicions of Orochimaru since he fled the village. He hates the village, everyone knows that. During the next exam, held here, he gains a chance to infiltrate the village by waltzing right in, for revenge against you, and the destruction of Konoha. If I recall, he also wants to acquire the Sharingan, something my father Fugaku was absolutely certain of. He'll either come after myself, Danzo, Kakashi, or my brother. Seeing as Itachi is stronger than him, he'll double his winnings by targeting the village. Hiruzen Sarutobi's expression was entirely unreadable, as expected. And the sand? This is the more difficult and far-fetched bit to explain. They hate the village, since we get many lucrative contracts that they themselves feel they should get. They're in a serious recession as is, but mix that with living in the desert? They're ready to go to war to ensure their survival. Orochimaru offers them a deal to take down a rival village. They'd eagerly accept, in the hopes that destroying us will bag them more jobs. He looked more dubious than Anko had earlier, and seemed to be ignoring of mulling over my mention of Danzo. That's some rather far-fetched reasoning. Though not unbelievable. I shrugged. There'll be more evidence of it later. By the way, has my brother reported anything recently? The Hokage stopped dead. As in, he fucking froze. The look on his face was absolutely priceless. This is the kind of mindfuck I live for, the kind that throws their entire mental process for a loop and a half. Your brother has betrayed the village and become a missing nin. You know this. I blinked and stared at him expectantly. Don't patronize me, old man. I know full well he was under orders to wipe out my clan, given an ultimatum by that thieving bastard, Danzo Shimura. I also know he begged you to spare my life. It took me until just a few days ago to realize he was never a traitor in the first place. Until then I had nightmares every night that he came back to finish what he started. So do not lie to me when we both know the truth. Your words border on insubordination. His tone was neutral, but had inflection behind it. There was a hidden threat in those words. Decisions. How to handle this? I narrowed my eyes. I'll be insubordinate if I damn well please. My entire family is dead, based on speculation and intrigue. My brother pays the price for the council's politics. If I had my way, I would kill every one of them involved in the massacre. Danzo used it as an opportunity to acquire as many of my family's Sharingan eyes as he could, instigated mass murder, and walked away. The Hyuga used the chance to gain power and influence in the village. Others took advantage of a traumatized boy with more wealth than he knew what to do with. So excuse me if I am not feeling very forgiving. For some reason, I wasn't just indignant, I felt enraged. I wanted to beat someone to death with their own arms. Or maybe a spine or two, good to have some variety. Sarutobi sighed once more. There is nothing more to be said. I am sorry, but I did what I had to. Our best option for peace died with Shisui. The past cannot be changed. I took a breath, forcing my mind into a state of peace. No, it can't. But we can learn from our mistakes, and ensure they are not repeated, and that blood was not shed for nothing. When the time comes, I want to tell them, everyone, to honor my brother's sacrifice. To show that he has not been forgotten, has not disappeared, even if he intended to serve history from the shadows. He deserves that much. My own words moved me, and I felt that tightening in my chest. The kind that comes with great emotional turmoil. Or indigestion. That breakfast of crackheads is starting to come back to bite my ass. Hiruzen's expression hadn't shifted after regaining that calm neutrality. He was nearly unflappable. Nearly. He is a true shinobi. One who sacrifices himself for his village, whose valor and honor are unknown by the public. But he will be remembered by those who know the truth. And, perhaps, one day the people will come to learn that truth, and recognize him as a hero. I chuckled dryly. It'll be the same day Naruto becomes Hokage. I've no doubt in my mind that that day will come. The old man quirked an eyebrow. When Naruto becomes Hokage, you wouldn't seek the title yourself? Me, wearing that goofy hat? I'll be cold in the ground before that happens. I shook my head, smiling. No, I'm better suited to the front lines. I'm too hot-headed to sit behind a desk. I'd wind up strangling the politicians within a day, and the cycle of hatred must be broken. Naruto's perfect to do just that. Hiruzen chuckled. Hoo, you're right. And I hope I'll still be around to see it when that day comes. I barked a short laugh. Ha, you hope? I say again, ha. Oji-san, you're going to outlive us all. If I have anything to say about it, anyway. You won't be thinking that in another decade or two. Well, go on, then. You've got your first day as a real ninja today, and you don't want to turn out like your sensei. Oh, and before you go, don't mention what we've discussed to others. Sworn to secrecy and all that? Alright, there might be a handful of exceptions. Not many, but a few. Kakashi and Jiraiya, if they need a kick in the ass to get him moving. Always fun to guilt people. I turned and left, making my way to the training field. I was still an hour early to the meeting, and Kakashi was still 2 hours late. I later asked Anko to help me in burning the bastard's book collection. Anko. Immediately after Sasuke had left the Hokage's office, the Junin dropped out of the ceiling, having been listening in on the conversation. Well, Hokage-sama? Hiruzen closed his eyes for a moment, thinking. After several moments, he said, Sasuke is indeed acting strange, and made wild claims that I do not wish to verify via the Yamanaka. The risk of traumatizing him is too great. I will not give him another reason to hate the village that he is willing to risk life and limb for, the village that has already treated him so poorly. He has not done anything overtly treasonous, but you will watch him, gain his trust, become his confidant, and seduce him in the years to come. You will ensure his loyalty. That will be your top priority, until you are relieved of this burden. The kunoichi shifted uncomfortably. It wasn't the first time she'd been tasked with seducing someone for the purpose of espionage, but a child? One of their own, even? It was unheard of, even more so for the purpose of keeping them loyal. Must I, Hokage-sama? He's just a kid. The third's eyes opened, gaze as hard as iron. For now, this is not going to be a short-term assignment, I'm afraid. You will be his teacher and big sister, watching out for him. But as he grows older, he will develop affection for you, I can guarantee it. This is your specialty, after all. Very well, Hokage-sama. 1 week later. Sasuke. Well, I made it through the week. I'm still me, I think. Still can't remember shit, but hey. Now I honestly react to the name Sasuke, so I no longer second-guess myself at least. Not sure if I should be happy or sad about that, though. So far, I've got nothing along the lines of a solution to my fading memories. But I did write down several important bits of information. Itachi not being a traitor, the old Warhawk being a bastard backstabber, Pain being Nagato. The names of all the Jinchuriki, along with the names of several important individuals. Not to mention various important events and character weaknesses. Just in case I started forgetting things like that. Oddly enough, I can still clearly recall reading and watching Naruto, as well as several other different anime. However, I can't remember the names or faces of anyone I watched it with. Weird. Anyway, our first week as genin was torture. We painted fences, picked up trash, cleaned gutters and sewers, and caught that bloody cat. 6 times. In under a week. Gah. That aside, we each made a bit of money, around 1500 ryo per job, with Kakashi getting a 500 ryo chunk. So that's how the 5 grand was split, Hey, it costs more than that to feed us after each job. Moving on, other than making some pocket money, I usually wound up paying for food after our missions. There were benefits to being a clan heir, after all. Stingy sensei, other than that. I picked up some new threads. More cargo pants, some long-sleeve shirts, a pair of cloaks for cold weather, and several new pieces of armor. I was sick of wearing sandals already, so I was ecstatic about finally getting some boots. Of course, my teammates made comments about my choice of footwear. They'll slow you down. Those'll make noise. Of course, I then pointed out how both of them were disgusted when we had to clean out a sewer. Both of them spent a good 5 minutes afterwards cleaning muck out from between their toes. I got several pairs of heavy, high-quality plated shinobi boots. Good for kicking and walking, along with a pair of thicker, warmer ones for winter envy ornaments. Land of snow and all that, y'all. Aside from clothes, I picked up new armor. Most ninjas wear mesh armor under their clothes, which I already had, but I decided to get something better for combat. An armguard and pauldron, worn on my left arm that acts as a shield against blows and projectiles. The pauldron protected my neck and upper arm, also giving me a way to fully guard my head from projectiles if need be. However, none of this affected my mobility, and I could detach any part of it in seconds. Not to mention, as it was made for shinobi, by shinobi, it was silent. Speaking of new steel, I finally broke down and bought a sword. Not one of the Anbu kind, but an actual sword. It took some convincing, but the weapon shopkeeper sold me a large, double-edged, straight-blade two-handed sword. Nowhere near the size of Zabuza's weapon, but I had difficulty swinging it with one hand. It would do perfectly when it comes to fighting someone wearing armor. I also picked up a knife and a tomahawk. No, not a kunai, but a knife. A combat knife, not meant to be thrown, but for fighting and killing. I just liked having something I could rely on that was razor sharp, as I didn't much care for kunai as actual weapons. The axe was well, for chopping, and maiming, and for torture. Okay, I got it because I like using axes. They're heavier than most other weapons, and hit a lot harder. Not to mention, they're great for fighting in close quarters. You can trap an enemy's weapon, arm, leg or neck with it. Or simply break their weapon, which is a lot of fun. The look on someone's face when you snap their blade is priceless. And, of course, I got a nice leather harness for carrying my sword. I also rigged up the sheath for my new hok to latch onto it, keeping two of my new weapons on my back. My knife got tacked onto the pauldron, keeping it on my left shoulder at the ready. My team commented on my new accessories with mirth, the bastards. So do you even know how to use those? Naruto, the smart aleck. Geez, Sasuke-kun, those look heavy. Sakura, the fangirl. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. I hope those aren't going to just slow you down, Sasuke. Insensitive prick. I'll show him all. No, not all of me, you perverts. Sasuke. It was another beautiful, boring Saturday morning when Sasuke woke up groggy as hell, his head filled with a heady, sweet scent. Like perfume. After rubbing the sleep from his eyes, Sasuke found he was not alone, with only some surprise. Quietly dozing next to him was Anko Mitarashi, having broken into his home once more. But apparently, she'd fallen asleep sitting on the edge of his bed. He blinked owlishly, wondering why she'd appeared in his home again while he decided what he'd do about it. Can't fuck with her too much, she'd wake up before he even fully drew on her cheek. Could arrange the two of them into a more compromising position and then cry foul to mess with her head. Could whip out his prick, slather some spit on it and really mess with her head. The corner of his mouth twitched with mirth. That last one would be the funniest, though the irate Anko would very likely inflict great bodily harm upon the Uchiha for screwing with her head. It was at this moment that the woman shifted and rolled over, curling herself up a bit, just a hint of drool leaking out of her mouth. In a word, she was adorable. Sasuke then made his decision, shifting ever so gently, so they were nose to nose. After watching her eyes very carefully for movement, he decided she wasn't feigning sleep. So he said, rather loudly, "Miss Mitarashi." Anko gave a start, practically bumping his nose with her own as she blushed, blinking owlishly. Sasuke ed a brow. You know, if you're going to sneak into my bed, the least you can do is buy me dinner first. The woman bounded off of his bed, immediately straightening herself out as she growled to herself, fell asleep, damn it. I'd like to hear why you broke in again. The woman rolled her eyes. Oh, your bed is just so much more comfortable looking than mine, I had to find out for myself. I've been assigned to provide supplementary training for you, apparently, you left a good impression on the Hokage. Mulling this over, Sasuke sat up, about to throw the covers off when he stopped short, glancing under them before turning a sironic eye on the kunoichi. Very funny. Anko stared at him, dumbfounded. What? Where the hell are my shorts? Blanching, the Junin blushed bright red and stuttered, your shish. The fuck are you suggesting? Sasuke chuckled and hopped out of bed, satisfied with her reaction. Just fucking with you, you're cute when you blush. He could practically feel the so-called killing intent radiating off of her as he selected an outfit, calmly ignoring her until he was dressed and kitted out. Just as he tied his bandana in place, he felt her warm hands upon him, her soft S pressed against the back of his head. But something cold and hard pressing against his throat. Let's get something straight here, Romeo. Her sickly sweet sing-song voice rang in his ears, her warm breath on his neck. You don't get to tease me. Next time you make a East remark like that, I'm going to hurt you. Do you understand? His reaction was not what she expected. He laughed, heedless of the steel against his neck. Bawahahaha. Is that your best effort to intimidate me? I've been cut up, burned, and stabbed more than once. Lady, spent half my short life intent on killing the last of my kin, even if it cost me my life. You're not going to scare me. Sasuke found himself forced to look straight up into her eyes, forced halfway closed by the too wide, too sweet smile on her face. Fearless, are you? As he gazed into those beautiful chocolate eyes, he knit a brow. No other way to live. And the way you're dressed, meant to catch the eye of every hot-blooded man that passes you by? If you can't take a genuine compliment that isn't along the lines of, nice tits, then we're probably not going to get along. Hypocrites disgust me. Anko loosed a throaty chuckle, a sultry sound that would arouse the interest of nearly any man in the room. Hoo. You're lucky I like you, Gaki. She could already tell. This little punk would be a real heartbreaker when he got a little older. He was still a bit too why for her tastes, as most genin are, but that would change. She hoped so, if she was going to be stuck with him for the foreseeable future. The corner of his mouth twitched. I might take that the wrong way, if you keep staring at me so longingly with those beautiful chocolate eyes. Her eye twitched as she fought to keep the blush off her face. Anko desperately wanted to smack the shit out of him for teasing her like that, yet not wanting to give him the satisfaction. Mostly because she liked it, that slow drawl he had that so closely mimicked her old on-again, off-again boyfriend Kakashi. But he smiled when he saw her ever so slight reaction. This kid would definitely be a headache for her. Meet me in training field 3 after you finish whatever missions Kakashi has lined up for you. We'll see if you've got what it takes to survive being my apprentice. Sasuke. Kakashi had 3 tasks for us today. We painted a quarter-mile of picket fence, raked leaves in 2 public parks, and had to catch that damned menace of a hellcat. Naruto looked like he'd gotten in an argument with Tenten and grabbed her ass. He was cut up all over. I suppose a cat in a shinobi village chased by ninja all the time becomes a ninja feline. It was late afternoon, around 4 or 5, he guessed, when he made his way to the training field Anko had specified. He wasn't feeling particularly happy nor sad about it, more ambivalent than anything else. This series of events was outside of what he remembered from the series. He supposed he ought to do a better job of acting like Sasuke. But what fun would that be? For all he knew, this was just a lucid dream. He didn't particularly give a damn one way or another, he just didn't want to be bored. Yawning languidly, Sasuke arrived at the grassy clearing designated training field 3, same place he'd taken the bell test. Sasuke wasn't sure if she chose this place because he was familiar with it, or for some other reason. Anko casually stepped out from behind one of the 3 wooden posts, nonchalantly twirling a kunai around her thumb by its pommel. About time you showed up. He noted how easily she'd been able to hide from him, as well as the distance from which she detected him, a good 30 or 40 feet. By ear, she'd have to have nearly superhuman hearing. By nose would make sense, too, given the wind's direction. Or perhaps she's got some other means of spying on him, maybe shadow clones. Evening, what's the plan? She grinned pleasantly. Like I told you, we're going to see if you'd even survive my training. Before he could even brow in response, there was a shrill whistling noise. Whip, eyes shooting wide, Sasuke threw himself to the ground on instinct, new blade in hand before even rolling to his feet, noting the kunai buried in the dirt right where he'd been standing. Shadow clones? Or is the Anko in front of me an illusion? She trained under Orochimaru, Genjutsu and shadow clones are both on the table. He kept one eye on the kunoichi in front of him as he quickly began circling her, angling himself to see where that knife had been thrown from. She didn't bother turning to keep him in her sight as she continued smiling and cheerfully said, "Ooh, you're smarter than I thought. You can't tell if I'm the real Anko, or if the real one threw the kunai. Or if both of you are shadow clones and the real one is watching me from the trees, prepping an ambush or waiting for me to step into a trap. Can't swear that this isn't a genjutsu, either, given that you're recognized as being very skilled in the art." Sasuke kept his weapon in both hands, bringing the blade up into his preferred stance, the ox, a high guard which kept the blade horizontal and parallel with his temples. It was good for offense and defense, striking a very nice balance between them. He had quite a lot of experience with European medieval martial arts, having spent a few years with a Renaissance reenactment crew. Of course, he could fight quite well with a knife in his bare hands, even without Sasuke's memories of academy training. But his previous training emphasized using a knife in conjunction with a pistol, utilizing the blade as a standoff or "get the fuck off me" device for contact shooting. He'd have to unlearn a few things to function in this world. Anko's happy smile morphed into a savage grin, her teeth glinting in the light, almost looking like fangs for an instant. Much smarter than I expected. You only bought that sword a few days ago. But you look like you already know how to use it. I've never seen a stance like that before, though. He answered without hesitation, and in truth, it wasn't exactly a lie. Something my brother showed me years ago. We going to fight, or just talk about our feelings? She didn't answer as he kept circling, but the instant he saw her grin widening, he stopped mid-step. Trap, he thought, and hopped well back from where he stood, changing tactics. Ha 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 ha. Very good. Anko finally began to slowly approach him. But you really need to learn to spot traps without a visual cue from your enemy. Sasuke stood his ground, breathing slowly and deeply. He had no doubt she could easily outmatch him in terms of strength, speed, and endurance. But he was confident his skill was far beyond that of an amateur, and he had a serious advantage in reach. Not going to run? Alright, Gaki, let's see what Itachi taught you. She vanished into thin air, not even a puff of smoke. Sasuke instantaneously threw himself into a dive, tucking and rolling back to his feet as he spun about, taking in his surroundings. She had quite literally disappeared. Shunshin? Shadow clone? Genjutsu? Carefully panning the clearing and the tree line with his eyes, he shifted back into his stance, ears perked for the slightest hint of an incoming attack. And he waited. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. A full minute passed, but Sasuke refused to relax. Stalling tactics are a basic part of psychological warfare. More kunai? Some long-range jutsu? Or perhaps an earth jutsu, hitting me from below. Hard to guard against. Only tell will be vibration under my feet. What is she testing, here? My ability? Or my resolve? Whip. He spun on instinct, bringing his weapon to bear and deflecting the kunai. Shit, that was aimed at my neck. No wonder she has a reputation for being a psycho. Seeing nothing moving in the trees, he retook his stance and waited. Something isn't right, here. She's testing more than my will and my body. Leaf shinobi are at their strongest among the trees. Running through the woods would be suicidal. Guarantee she's got traps and ambushes set up all over the place. Or is that? *THW Thwip. The Uchiha dove to the side in another roll, careful to keep his blade tucked in the safest manner possible. Standing, he found half a dozen kunai buried where he'd been standing. Fuck, that's the idea, then, goad me into running to the trees for cover from the kunai, playing right into her hands. Options? Sasuke quickly glanced around, seeing the grass and leaves rustling in the wind, the 3 posts, the creek. He smirked. Idea. And he took off running, carefully sheathing his sword and speeding up into a dead sprint, heading for the tree line directly next to the water's edge. He knew from the series that water was fairly deep, at least 10 or 12 feet. It would suffice. He crossed the 30 meters to the trees in record time, just as another handful of kunai whistled through the air, and Sasuke heaved in a deep breath. Splush. The boy threw himself to the side, appearing to have accidentally thrown himself right into the water in a desperate attempt to dodge her blades. Once submerged, he immediately dove deeper, following the current to pick up speed as he moved unobserved. He had maybe 2 minutes before needing to resurface. Perhaps less, with the armor, weapons, and equipment weighing him down. Note to self, dry and oil everything tonight, else it'll all be a pile of rust tomorrow. He swam a good 50 yards before slowing, carefully pulling himself out of the water and into the tree line, breathing hard. This wouldn't give him much of a head start, but anything is better than walking straight into her trap. He ducked low, moving quickly as he stalked through the underbrush, ears perked for more signs of attack. Anko nodded to herself as she watched him from above, quietly impressed. Kid knew I was forcing him into a trap. He's earned the title Rookie of the Year. Wonder if he intended to use the water to mask his scent, too? 50-50. Unseen, she grins wickedly. Dumbass is still walking right into my kill zone. Let's see how he likes the gauntlet. Sasuke had moved a good 20 yards, taking cover and looking around every so often to maintain situational awareness of his surroundings. He was surprised he hadn't been attacked, yet. From the series, he knew Anko was vicious, practically a sadist. and there was no way in hell he'd actually managed to ditch her. Just as he was about to pass by a rather knobbly-looking oak tree, his instincts screamed at him, and he froze. Stop. Danger. Don't rush, look around. He obeyed that gut feeling, and finally saw what triggered his nebulous sixth sense: a razor-thin tripwire running from that aged tree to another. Trip lines. Running too. He followed it with his eyes until he was looking straight up, at a rather large log suspended from heavier steel wire. His eyes widened when he saw that. If that thing hit him, he'd be in the hospital. Or the morgue. He slowly nodded to himself with a slight pout. This wasn't going to be anything like training with Kakashi. Sasuke froze for a split second. Then his gaze snapped onto the chocolate eyes of the woman squatting right in front of him, having silently appeared not even a full foot away from him, right on the other side of that tripwire. You're taking too long, Gaki. And she flicked that tripwire with her thumb. *NNGH. You chicken fucker. Sasuke screamed as he dove right over her head when he heard that log groaning ominously above him, gracelessly rolling and scrambling to his feet, taking off at a dead sprint through the trees. He got no more than 10 yards before he heard that ominous whistling again. Whip. Sasuke juked to the side, evading a kunai that would have missed him anyway, hitting a tree some 15 feet ahead of him. Nice aim, Viper girl. Maybe you ought to cover up an eye like Kakashi. I think depth perception is only hindering you. As he passed that tree and kunai, just over the din of his footfalls, he heard something else. Something that made his stomach drop into his scrotum. Case. Holy foo. He barely had time to scream as he threw all his weight to his left. Bado umshka. The kunai exploded, taking a sizable chunk of the tree with it as it threw Sasuke into a painful tumble across the roots of at least half a dozen other trees. Ow. Sucking in a painful breath through grit teeth, he shoved himself to his feet and staggered away, clutching his abdomen. Bruised. Nope, cracked ribs. Definitely cracked 1 or 2. Gah, fuck this hurts. That woman is insane. He moved as quickly as he could while he caught his breath. The best he could maintain was a brisk jog. *THW thwip. Once more, the Uchiha juked to one side, painfully doubling over to dodge the blades that passed by him. He thought that was it. Case. Until he heard that terrifying hissing again. Are you kidding me? He forced himself forward, throwing everything he had into a frenzied sprint, tear-assing through the trees, now, as BADOOMSHKAA. As the entire forest blew up around him, his ears ringing terribly. Now he would struggle to hear the kunai being thrown at him, a very problematic disadvantage until it wore off. If he lived that long. Sasuke continued running, making it another 40 yards before he skidded to a halt, spinning and drawing his blade. Can't keep running, he thought, panting raggedly. New plan, engage as best as I am able. Single quote. With his back to a massive oak, he retook his stance and tried to catch his breath, warily eyeing the spaces between the trees around him. The sun was beginning to set, now. If they continued this training in the dark, he may as well stab himself and savor the trouble. He waited like this for at least 3 minutes until the ringing in his ears dropped to a volume he could tolerate, hopefully enough to hear any kunai or shuriken coming his way. Glancing around, he saw no movement, no beige, no purple. Where was she? Yo! In the next instant, those chocolate eyes were less than an inch from his own, her nose practically touching his hide. Sasuke froze. Anko had been hiding in the tree behind him, and simply dropped down, hanging upside down from a branch above. Somehow, he hadn't seen her when he looked up. Which shouldn't be possible. This isn't any fun if you're not going to run away. He steeled himself, growling, can't outrun you in the forest. Even chased by someone you can't beat, knowingly running first into an ambush is retarded. So shut up and fight. He expected her to shout, hit him, berate him, or something. Instead, she grinned that too wide, too sincere smile that forced her beautiful eyes shut. You sure about that, Gaki? That sickly sweet tone of voice was dripping with poisoned honey, even if her head was maybe 6 inches from the edge of his sword. Strike with crossguard, pirouette, and parry her attack. Or improvise. Sasuke decided to improvise. In the blink of an eye, he grabbed her ponytail in a death grip, rearing back as he watched her eyes snap wide open, her arms a blur of motion. But it was far too late, and she was focused on the wrong threat, grabbing the blade of his sword in her bare hands, heedless of its keen edge. The last Uchiha slammed his hite-8 into her nose with a desperate headbutt, relishing the sickening crunch as scalding hot blood spattered across his face and into his bandana. RRRAGH. And the next thing he knew, his back slammed into the ground, sword flying through the air, and the kunoichi was sitting on his chest with a kunai pressed against his throat. He could barely breathe, her weight against his injured ribs was agonizing. PLP. She was breathing hard, a fearsome look on her bloodied but beautiful face, baring her teeth as blood dripped down onto him. After several seconds of glaring at him with that terrifying look, she breathed deep and sheathed her weapon, growling, "I'd be damned proud of that, if I wasn't ready to skin you alive, Sasuke." He forced a eyed grin, gritting out, "After blowing me up? I'd call it even for my ribs. You mind?" Anko stood, pulling the genin up by the baldric carrying his sheath, tugging his shirt up to look at his abdomen. After maybe 3 seconds of studying him, she grunted, "Just bruised, nothing broken. You'll live." She looked him in the eye again, heedless of her bloodied nose. "That was a good hit, lucky, but good. Don't forget that a headbutt is a last resort trick that most shinobi will expect." Sasuke chuckled mirthlessly, glancing around for wherever she'd thrown his weapon. "I'd have kicked you in the junk if that was an option, easier to do without telegraphing your intent." "Ah, the old cunt punt. And here I thought you were a gentleman," she snarked, arching a brow. Rolling his dark eyes, he muttered, "All the shinobi gentlemen in the world can be found in one graveyard or another." She smiled brightly. "Fair enough. Just remember, you kick me in the twat, and I'm going to give you a very sloppy circumcision with a pair of garden shears. Probably after 2 or 3 bottles of sake, depends on my mood." The Uchiha blinked owlishly. For some reason, he had an inkling that she meant every last word of that threat in a very literal manner. If 2 shinobi agree not to hit each other in the groin, is that what they call mutual respect? Anko snorted in amusement. Probably the closest thing to it, besides 2 cannibals giving each other a blowjob. Sasuke couldn't help but chuckle at that. "But, to get back on topic, you're smarter than I first gave you credit for. They were right to award you the title Rookie of the Year. But you damn sure hesitated far too long to react after getting kunai chucked at you. Good chance a real attack would have injured or killed you. Not all blades whistle when thrown, Gaki. Jumping in the water was a smart move, but without clones to act as decoys, it was pointless. You spotted a few of the traps, but missed others. If I had snakes out here, you'd have gotten bit more than once, and that would have been the end of you. Anytime an enemy misses you, assume it was done intentionally, you'll live longer. The explosive tags I used were 1/4 yield. You would have been dead while you ran your fucking mouth if it was real." The corner of her mouth twitched up with mirth. "That was a good line, though, I'll give you that. Got a few friends that'll get a kick out of it, hee-hee. On to the good news, congratulations, you little shit, I'll be training you regularly from now on." Sasuke suppressed the urge to roll his eyes and snark something that would get his ass kicked again. I could use the extra exercise. I get the feeling Kakashi's too lazy to really spend as much time training us as he should." "What else for today?" She shook her head. "Nothing else, you did pretty good considering it's your first time running the gauntlet. You're dismissed, we'll meet here again tomorrow after you complete your assignments." He nodded, jerking a thumb over his shoulder. "Gotcha. Well, I'm going to get cleaned up and hit Ichiraku's for dinner, then. Feel free to join me if you like, sensei." With that, he tracked down his discarded sword, drawing it out of the tree it was embedded in while he glanced over its edge. "Ah, really going to regret diving with all this." He sheathed the weapon while he started to make his way out, making a mental note of the way Anko had been watching him. Forget running the gauntlet and challenging Me to a head-on fight. He just broke my nose, and then asked me out to dinner. That kid really is fearless. Sasuke, feeling refreshed after that shower, and immensely calm after carefully drying, cleaning, and oiling his equipment, the Uchiha made his way through the streets towards the family-owned ramen stand, quite pleased with himself. For you see, he had discovered a new trick. When he began practicing his chakra cycling exercise on his way home, he found that the ache in his ribs nearly vanished the instant his power flowed through his abdomen. He would have to experiment with this even more, because the implications are quite interesting. Sasuke blinked owlishly as he came into sight of Ichiraku's, seeing two familiar faces. Naruto was sitting down eating, as expected, but he caught sight of Anko approaching, as well. Didn't think she'd take me up on my offer. He got there just as she did, casually greeting both her and his orange-clad teammate. Oi, good to see you, Naruto-sensei. Anko was looking exactly as she did this morning, nose completely healed. No bandage nor blood, little button nose wasn't even crooked. He wagered she saw a med nin, or has a healing factor like Naruto. The blonde glanced over his shoulder, seeing Sasuke, but then looking around the other way. Kakashi-sensei's here, too? Where's he hiding? He meant me, blondie. Anko was smiling that overly cheerful smile again. Naruto looked her up and down, ing a brow. Why are you wearing a henge to look like you're working the red light district, Kakashi-sensei? The only reaction Sasuke saw was one of her chocolate eyes twitch. Whoa. The Uchiha was immediately panicking, rushing forward as he tried to placate his new teacher. Don't hurt him, Gak. Naruto found himself pulled back in his stool by his hair, a blade tapping his hite-8 while Anko grinned menacingly at him. Would you care to repeat that, Naruto? I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I thought you were my pervy sensei. That's what I thought. Sasuke thought she'd drop him to the ground, but she tugged him back up into a sitting position, casually sitting down next to him as if she hadn't just threatened him. Sasuke heaved a sigh of relief, taking a seat on her other side and introducing her. Yeesh. Naruto, this is Anko Mitarashi. The Hokage assigned her to train me in my spare time. For his part, the blonde looked like he desperately wanted to shift into another chair, further away from the kunoichi. How come you get two senseis to teach you? Anko immediately filled in that little plot hole, grinning from ear to ear. I'd be happy to teach you, too, Naruto. The way she emphasized every syllable of his name made the Jinchuriki shiver. I'm good. No offense. The Uchiha couldn't help but chuckle as he ordered his food. Compared to Kakashi, she's got a very different idea of training. Oi, Ayame. I'll have the Naruto special. Pass me the bill for whatever these two are having. Of course, Sasuke. And what would you like, miss? The young girl poked her head out from the kitchen, coming up to the counter with a kind smile and another bowl she placed in front of Naruto. Anko took another 2 or 3 seconds to study the menu before she asked, "What's the Naruto special?" She was somewhat surprised the boy was going to pay for her outright, as well as his teammate, but then again. He's the sole remaining Uchiha in the village. He surely had a lot of money laying around. 3 bowls of miso pork, and 2 bowls of our house special. The Junin's nose twitched as she noted how the blonde boy next to her was eagerly wolfing down his 6th bowl of ramen, obviously more on the way. For his size, his appetite matched her own, ravenous as she could be at times. Sure, I'll try it. The brunette nodded and smoothly turned, scurrying back into the kitchen with her father, Tucci. Careful, Anko. The food here is addictive, Sasuke quipped brightly. The best things in life usually are. If it's that good, she'd eat her fishnet. Ramen wasn't exactly a favorite of hers. The dark-eyed boy wagged his eyebrows at her. The withdrawal's no joke, either. Naruto grows fangs and claws if he goes too long without, starts howling at the moon and hunting virgins. Awoo! Naruto howled in response, snickering to himself immediately after. Anko rolled her eyes, biting her tongue. You two should have become comedians, not shinobi. Sasuke shrugged and smirked. Figure I'd warn you, the blonde dork's more cunning than he looks. She shook her head. Spent almost 10 years dating Cyclops off and on. I'm not worried. That's exactly why I'm worried. The exaggerated concern in the Uchiha's voice was palpable. Her expression was unreadable. We're talking about Kakashi, here. Exactly. Naruto joined in, already sensing where his teammate was going with his joke. He's always walking around reading porn in broad daylight. Sometimes he starts reading out loud without even realizing it. Sasuke coughed suspiciously before continuing. Like I said, I worry for you, sensei. Kakashi wouldn't even know which hole to stick it in. As Naruto snorted and put his head down, trying, and failing, to suppress the cackle that escaped his throat, Anko blanched, stiffened, and turned bright red, before suddenly grabbing a fistful of Sasuke's shirt, getting in his face. What did he tell you? Think I touched a nerve. The Uchiha splayed his hands, eyes wide as he backed off on the crude humor. Whoa, easy. You lost me. I was just joking at our perverted sensei's expense. Anko's chocolate eyes narrowed as she stared hard into Sasuke's, paying no mind to the way the boy edged a brow at her response. Something tells me I struck a nerve by accident. Forget it, Gaki. She released him and faced forward, her mood souring immensely. If it makes you feel better, Naruto and I both clocked him in the sack during the bell test. Still think he ought to be demoted for letting new genin hit him like that, it's disgraceful. Anko snorted in amusement, shaking her head. A small but satisfying consolation prize, Gaki. Remember, though, the greatest warrior does not fear the second greatest. He fears the worst, because you cannot predict what he will do. Just as she finished speaking, the Yame came out bearing the first 4 bowls for us, setting them down and disappearing again. Here you go. Hope you enjoy, miss. Appreciate it. Sasuke watched her carefully as she took that first bite, her eyes widening as she slurped down the long, delicious noodles. It's the best ramen I've ever had. Told you. Naruto quipped, starting on bowl number 7. Anko cast a wary eye towards Sasuke. So, what did you do to it, anyway? He blinked owlishly, parroting, do to it? You were watching me so carefully for a reaction. I figured you'd paid the girl to slip me something nasty to get back at me for the gauntlet. Regardless of her blunt words, the Junin was still eating. The Uchiha's face scrunched up in confusion at the contradiction of words and actions, muttering, do I really come across as being that vindictive? Wait, forget that. You're asking me if I slipped you a Mickey, but you're still eating? She shrugged nonchalantly. First genin to continue speaking to me after the first session, let alone manage to actually draw blood. I wanted to know what sort of petty vengeance you came up with for the exploring tags. If you got creative, or if you went with something classic, like a laxative. Besides, this shit's fucking delicious. Sasuke just gave her that blank, disbelieving stare. Couple things. Training is training, so long as it's objective. I don't intend to whine or pitch a tantrum just because it's hard. That's kinda the point. Second, you're a Junin interrogator and assassination specialist, last I checked. I'm about 90% certain you'd be able to detect any medication or weirdness in your food. I'm smart enough to come up with something funny that won't end with my ass naked and suspended from the Hokage monument. And, seriously, say I had spiked your ramen with a potent laxative covered by the strong spices. You're still eating like you don't give a damn. Anko finished off that first bowl in record time and flashed him a cheery grin. I'm quite well known for having a very strong resilience to most toxins and medications, everything from liquor to laxatives. You'd need enough to give a horse dysentery for me to notice the effects. You probably shouldn't have said that in front of Naruto. The Junin blinked owlishly, turning to glance at the menacing grin on the blonde's face, before looking back at Sasuke, arching one delicate brow. I'm the dashing leader, Naruto's the goofy prankster, and Pinky's the brains. Don't get me wrong, I'm no stranger to mischief, but the orange jackass over there is the one to watch out for. I spent 2 years in the academy trying to get him back for including me in one of his stunts, and I never managed it. You think he wore orange while defacing the Hokage monument at dawn for shits and giggles? She slowly turned to look at Naruto again, eyes narrowing slightly. The Gaki makes a fair point. I wonder if Kakashi is aware that the blockhead's not as dim-witted as he seems. Why are looking at me like you're trying to decide whether or not to stab me, Nei-chan? Anko's lips twitched. Nei-chan? Sasuke chuckled. Sounds like a fitting nickname to me. Eeyog. The Jinchuriki yelped as a brightly colored snake suddenly appeared out of Anko's sleeve, wrapping around his shoulders. She had on that too wide, overly sincere smile. Looks like Kurochi likes you. Naruto was practically trembling as the snake licked his cheek before retreating back up Anko's sleeves. Naruto's pleading eyes were suddenly on Sasuke. I think he got your point, Anko. You can drop the crazy snake lady act. The Junin actually pouted a bit. You're no fun. And terrifying Naruto is a bad fucking idea. You haven't heard about some of the less amusing pranks he's pulled. Plenty of academy instructors that found their coffee swapped with crude oil, their birth control replaced with aspirin, clothing and sandals modified without their knowledge, their shampoo replaced with hair dye, their chairs and desks sabotaged. I could go on for an hour or two. And that's the stuff I'm aware of. There's plenty the teachers would never admit to suffering. Like someone's personal lubricant being swapped out with heat-activated glue, or a thin coating of jalapeno juice in the worst possible places you can think of. Hey Dobie, how many of those did you actually confess to? He had that sadistic grin once more. About a third of him. Had to get Iruka, too, or else I would have been the prime suspect for everything from the beginning. Sasuke chuckled. So that's why you glued his pants to his chair. Iruka-sensei hated that chair, anyway. It always squeaked, even after oiling it. The blonde suddenly laughed aloud, unable to contain his mirth, the fear forgotten. Never admitted to this, but one time I got him with one of those constipation drugs. The kind that keep you from crapping for a few days. Did that so I could hit the teacher's lounge and spike their coffee machine with laxatives after spreading a dusting of powdered ghost peppers on all the toilet paper in the academy. Anko's jaw dropped as she mouthed, that's pure evil. She suddenly wrapped an arm around the Jinchuriki, grinning from ear to ear. You know what, you're alright, Naru-kun. Just promise to tell Nei-chan when you're free to assist with some good-natured pranks. The last Uchiha was suddenly overcome by a feeling of utter dread, as though he'd just unleashed a great evil upon this world. He made a mental note to never piss off either of them if he could avoid it. More than half an hour passed as Naruto engrossed the kunoichi in his stories while the three ate, before the sky seemed to open up on them, the pitter-patter of heavy rain drawing their attention. For some reason, Sasuke's entire attention was taken up when Anko stared out into the deluge with a faraway look in those chocolate eyes, mumbling to herself. Anything but the rain. Sasuke. Well, we went through another 2 weeks of D-rank crap, my poor dumb ass getting tortured trained by Anko in what little spare time I had, before Naruto bugged out just before we received another mission. Not that I blame him, he was the one who got clawed the most by Tora. Fucking demon cat. After he freaked and shouted, the Hokage relented and gave us our first C rank. The drunk old man walking in, and Naruto's subsequent rage at Tezuna's comment, to which I then remarked. The short stupid looking one, huh? Well, Naruto, that fits you to a T, least he didn't hit on Sakura like the last one. All three of us shuddered, thinking of the perverted, half-blind old man who ogled Sakura like a piece of meat. Until she got closer, and he saw she had no tits. Oh, the A-cup angst-filled rage that followed. That's all for now. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments.